Lion Country Kia Sports Talk with Steve Jones. Live on ESPN Radio 1037 and 1450. Featuring interviews and conversation from the voice of Penn State football and basketball. Now, here's Steve Jones.
Steve Jones is on a plane right about now, heading to Bloomington, Indiana. Zach Sako here, filling in for the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, and he's going to be fairly busy with Indiana tomorrow and men's basketball hosting Winthrop on Monday, November 7th. It is a privilege to be joined in studio by my co-host today, Jamal Ellerby and Aeneas Hawkins on the show. Gentlemen.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. That's where I want to be on a Friday afternoon, but talking sports and talking Penn State sports and professional. Aeneas, how about you?
I'm doing well, man. We got a lot to talk about finally. The weather's pretty good here, man, for early November in State College. Can't complain too much.
And we are taking your phone calls today if you want to get in on the conversation, 272-9625. That is 272-9625, and you put the 814 in front of it. We want to hear from you because we're previewing Penn State and Indiana. We are doing a buy or sell. Are you buying or selling the college football playoff rankings? And we will get into the MLB World Series, Eagles, Steelers, NFL, as we go through 2 hours here on ESPN Radio State College. As a reminder, we have complete Penn State coverage tomorrow, starting at 12:30 with our local Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships pregame show, and that will take place from 12:30 to 2, and then Learfield will take over with Steve Jones, Jack Ham, and Brian Tripp from 2 on to 3:30 when they kick off between Penn State and Indiana, and then we have our local postgame show approximately 4:30 on ESPN Radio State College and 99.5 The Bus. Also today, if you need more Penn State preview, we have Keystone Kickoff at 3, Pater to Penn State Football Show with Matt McGloin and Tom Hannafin at 4 p.m. All right, let's start with those college football playoff rankings. They came out this past week on Tuesday, interrupting my action. I was enjoying Ohio and Buffalo, and I'm getting all these alerts. Hey, the top 25 are out. I don't care. I'm busy with the Buffs
Ohio football
and the Bobcats. Yeah, and Ohio, look at the way Penn State beat Ohio. That's a good MAC team. Besides the point. Aeneas, let's begin with you. Your impressions from the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, and they're fun and exciting to look at, right? But, like, how much do they really matter? I know Tennessee and Georgia are still yet to play. Ohio State and Michigan obviously got to play still. But the first thing that sticks out to me is a Clemson team of 4 that I am just not sold on to this point. They are undefeated, yes. No top 15 wins, quarterback issues. I'm not sure that the Clemson Tigers end up in this playoff down the line.
All right. For you, Jamal, your takeaways from these top 25?
Bama coming in at 6, and where will Bama finish out at the end of this season? I mean, Bama still has to play Georgia, and with that being said, if they're able to get that win, how does the NCAA settle that dispute, settle that one-game loss between those teams?
I mean, now the interesting point you bring up about Bama, so let's get into our buy and sell here. Okay, and Aeneas, you brought up Clemson. Clemson at number 4. So, Aeneas, you are selling them at number 4.
I'm selling them all day, every day. They haven't played anybody of any substance. They don't have a quarterback that they trust. I don't think they're the Clemson of old, and I think they're going to get exposed eventually.
All right, are you buying or selling?
I'm buying Clemson. And they made it this far 8-0. And if you look at the rest of the remaining teams on their schedule, they don't really play anybody. They play Notre Dame. They play Louisville. They play the University of Miami, who that may be a sneak game where they could lose. But at the end of the day, if they're able to end this season undefeated, they go into the college playoffs undefeated as well.
Do you put an undefeated Clemson in over a one-loss Bama?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I would too. You're undefeated at that point. But you're buying them with DJ Uiagalelei.
I'm buying that they make the college football playoffs. That's what I'm buying at this point. Now, how far they'll go in the college football playoffs now, I don't think they get past Bama, but I don't know if Bama's going to be there. I don't think they get past Ohio State, but will Ohio State be there? These are the questions we're going to have to ask later in the season. But right now, I'm buying that they make it in.
All right, we're buying or selling the current top 25 here. You are a firm believer that Clemson is the best, one of the best teams in college football at number 4. Personally, I would put Michigan over them, but it's kind of the same case because they said that Michigan's preseason schedule was not tough enough. I don't blame them. Same thing with Clemson here. They had a scare in Syracuse if they didn't change quarterbacks. Buying or selling TCU undefeated behind a one-loss Alabama, which I think is disrespectful. Aeneas.
I hate to keep doing this, but again, who have they played? They beat Oklahoma State, who is a good football team.
Yeah.
And I'll give them that. They beat West Virginia, who's kind of struggled and been off and on all year long. I'll go ahead and buy them because I think this is the best product we'll see from them, but I'm not sure they're a college football playoff team by any means.
I'm selling TCU as well. You got to sell TCU just because who have they played to this point in this season? And you have teams like Bama who have the strength of schedule that you won't really see from many other opponents. I don't think they'll make the college football playoffs, and I also think that one loss down the road is coming to this TCU team because I think they're going to ride the wave of this hype and eventually be disappointed.
So a ranked Oklahoma team doesn't do it for you guys, or a ranked Kansas team, or a ranked Oklahoma State team, or a ranked Kansas State team. They have 4 wins in the AP Top 25. That doesn't matter for either of you.
You mentioned Oklahoma. Oklahoma is not the same as they have been. It's a brand name. That's why it means a lot to me. I gave credit for the Oklahoma State win, and I'll continue to do such.
That's a top 10 win.
I'll give
Alabama
credit.
doesn't have a top 10 win.
Okay, we can sit here and we can act like we don't know who Alabama is every single year, what we're going to get from them. We know who they have to play down the line. Has TCU done enough right now to be in the college football playoff? Who do they play the rest of the year? I'm not convinced.
TCU just doesn't have enough third down efficiency for me. I mean, they're a great team so far. And
I don't care how they do on third down. I care if they're winning the game in the fourth quarter.
Third down is where it matters. Third down is how you win games
but I'm
in
talking.
the college football playoffs.
I'm not asking if they're going to be in the college football playoff, but to this point, they're better than 7. I'd honestly argue that they could be 5th. Why are they behind when they have 4 AP Top 25 wins? Why are they behind a 1-loss team? Why are they behind a Michigan team that played Colorado State? They played Hawaii. They played some of the worst teams in football, and they have 1 ranked win against Penn State.
Zach, you know what? Sitting in your chair, I can see why you're spinning around like that. But again, I'm looking at the competition and the level that these other teams are playing. And again, the strength of their schedule earlier in the season, they were able to get their footing because they started off against Colorado. They played SMU. I mean, they're beginning.
SMU is not a bad team either.
But SMU,
it's not a ranked win.
It's not a ranked win. SMU
it's better than Hawaii.
It is better than Ohio. If you're saying they're better than Michigan up to this point, then absolutely. Absolutely. But we're seeing how they'll be at the end of the season. That's a huge question you have to ask. I think, again, they'll falter to that Texas team later in the season.
I think it's a little biased here that Alabama, with 1 loss, is ranked higher than an undefeated team with 4 AP Top 25 wins. That just doesn't sit right with me. Let's go to a team that's definitely way overrated. That's my opinion. I'm selling them. Number 10, LSU at 6-2. They are the first two-loss team, and they sneak into the top 10 in ES. How does this even happen?
Again, I think it comes down to the brand and then the whole facade around the SEC football schedule. I have not been impressed with LSU, and especially after watching them play a Tennessee team that absolutely drubbed them. I'm not convinced. The Florida win was close. They beat a decent Auburn football team by 4. I think the top 10 is a stretch.
Not impressed with this LSU team. I think it's biases, which is why they're ranked so high. I mean, they lost the beginning of the season, but a week 1 loss, you really can't weigh too heavy because, again, this team isn't comfortable. They don't have the reps and the experience, and they haven't gelled yet. But I'm looking at this win against Florida, 45-35. They let a Florida Gators team score way too many points, and they're not highly as ranked when they play Alabama. But I think they're higher ranked at this point, so when they do play Alabama, it gets the national publicity that you want to see those SEC teams get. But in terms of actual skill, I don't think LSU has it this year.
And that's right on the money, Jamal. I think LSU is number 10 because Alabama needs another quality win. I think the committee put that into perspective. They looked at it and said, man, also look at number 24, Texas. Why is a 3-loss team in Texas in the top 25? Why are they ranked? Because Alabama needs some street cred. They need some clout. And then if they get, they beat a college football playoff team in Texas on the road by 1 point. Hey, they beat a top 10 LSU team. When LSU is not top 10, they lost to Florida State. They lost to a 4-3 Florida State team. The only reason they are there is because they beat Ole Miss. Like, they beat them down. It was close, and then they ran away with it 45-20. So I will give them that. But when you're playing 4 points to Auburn, when you get drummed, as we said, by Tennessee, I think that they're a little overrated here. And Texas too. I'm selling them. Let's get to Penn State because that's the one that everybody matters. Buying or selling Penn State at 15?
I like them at 15. 2 close losses to teams in the top 5. games that should have been close losses. The Ohio State game, obviously getting away from them at the end. Played them close for 3.5 quarters. Then you play a Michigan team who just absolutely ran the ball. I'm good with them at 15. They went on the road, beat Auburn, went on the road, beat Purdue, 2 decent football teams. And again, just based on their strength of schedule, what we've seen from other teams, you look at LSU, who got beat by Florida State, like you mentioned, and they're sitting at 10. So 15 doesn't bother me too much. I'm buying.
Yeah, buying at 15 just because of the way this Penn State team has played this far. The games they've lost, they've only lost them in the second half. So if you're judging them off of first half football, they're one of the best teams in college football, just in terms of the entire nation. But in terms of how they sit at 15, it's a good placement because you look at the teams behind them, North Carolina, Illinois, Oklahoma State. I'm picking Penn State over all of these teams, and those are just the immediate teams falling behind them. I don't think Penn State loses to any of those teams that are beneath the level of 15, but I also think Penn State could sneak a few wins against some of those top 15 level teams, against an LSU, a USC, which we will be able to see later on in a few years.
All right. This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones. I am Zach Sako, joined by Aeneas Hawkins and Jamal Ellerby in studio. As Steve is on a plane to Bloomington, we want to take your phone calls. Who are you buying or selling in the top 25 for the college football playoff rankings? 272-9625. I want to see those phone switches light up. 272-9625. You put the 814 in front of it. What team is overrated, underrated? Who do you want to see higher or lower in these rankings? One final team that I want to get to is Tulane. Tulane at 19. They're 7-1. They're in the American Athletic Conference. They beat Kansas State. I mean, that's the best win to date. But at 19, I think they would be dog walked by anybody in the top 25 here.
I mean, I think that win against Kansas State is important. I think it's a good win. But again, like you said, I'm just not convinced that they are one of the top teams in the country. Now, they'll play Cincinnati down the line, who has historically been the dominant team in that conference. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm not buying it.
I like Tulane. I'm riding the hype of Tulane. I like Tulane because it's about taking care of the football. That's what the quarterback does so far. I mean, he has a 67 completion percentage. He has 12 touchdowns to 3 interceptions on the year, and those aren't bad stats for a quarterback who's playing teams that, let's say, aren't top 5 or even top 10. I think Tulane will keep riding that green wave.
I mean, so you would take them over Syracuse? You think they'd beat Syracuse, beat Wake Forest?
NC State.
NC State, Oregon State sneaking in here. I mean, they're 6-2. That's fine. Even 3-loss Texas, I think, would beat this Tulane team, and that's kind of what I'm looking at. You gotta. It's half resume, half. Well, let's think about this. This team would beat them head to head. I don't buy that Tulane beats any of these schools that they're ranked ahead of. If they want to put them at 25, that's fine, but. They need a little more. More respect needs to be given to Syracuse and Wake Forest and NC State, and those are all 3 ACC teams. I would even say the teams that are outside the top 25, the Kentucky, Maryland, Notre Dame. I think, funny enough, all those teams that are not even ranked would beat Tulane.
I do agree that Kentucky needs more respect. I think Kentucky is one of the top teams in the NCAA. Now, of course, not top 10, not top 15, but top 20, top 25. They deserve to stay and remain in that conversation. But this Tulane team, they get turnovers, folks, and they also get sacks. They have a top defense, not in the NCAA, but definitely in their division. So for what they've been doing and who they've been playing, they've been doing their job. And it's about doing your job at a consistent rate, and they do that. They score the ball. In the last 3 weeks, they've scored 30-plus points each game. I can't be disappointed with the way this Tulane team's been playing and how they've been steamrolling later in the season.
Aeneas, anything else to add?
No, I think you bring up a good point on Kentucky. I think they might be underrated too. Leaving them off this list feels a little bit disrespectful. I know one of their losses came with Will Levis not playing in the game at all against South Carolina. So I think they deserve to be on this list, especially when I see some of the people some of the teams rather that are on here that I don't believe deserve to be as high as they are.
It is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, Zach Sako, Aeneas Hawkins, Jamal Ellerby in studio here, filling in for the voice of Penn State football as he flies out to Bloomington, Indiana with the Penn State football team. We are talking Hoosiers and Nittany Lions in the show. When we come back, number 1 versus number 2. I don't want to overshadow the Penn State game that everybody cares about, but Georgia and Tennessee, let's settle that one in our next segment here on ESPN Radio State College.
Here's a quick for BetQL. Is the NBA season too young to pick out trends? I don't think so. The trend that sticks out so far this year is that the LA Clippers are going to be an under monster all season. They are 7-1 to the under so far this year, and a lot of games haven't even been close. They play really stifling defense, and they have trouble scoring, plus Kawhi has missed a ton of games. That's a recipe for a lot of low-scoring matches. Until Kawhi is healthy, it's Clippers unders all day, all night. I'm Tristan Crick, helping you keep moving.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you 24/7, with supplies and solutions for every industry, and access to product specialists ready to help. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
At Nittany Beverage, we love beer. We like drinking beer. We like talking about beer. We know beer. And we know you love beer too. Whether you prefer domestic, imports, craft, or IPAs, we can help you select the perfect beer for the perfect situation. Even better, you don't even have to leave your vehicle. So when it comes to buying beer, there really is only one choice: Nittany Beverage. Make it your choice. Visit them just off West College Avenue near downtown and online at nittanybeverage.com.
Tune in for PA Prep Sports Breakdown. Join Zach Sako and Jason Lord every Wednesday at 5 as they discuss all things high school sports in Pennsylvania, including your local area favorites: Bald Eagle area, Bellefonte, Penns Valley, Phillipsburg, Osceola, and State College. Plus, hear directly from the coaches and players themselves with exclusive interviews only heard on the show. That's PA Prep Sports Breakdown, Wednesdays at 5 on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450.
Well, you probably wouldn't buy a pre-owned mattress, straw, or toothbrush.
Ew.
Pre-owned vehicles are a different story. There's one dealer in Happy Valley that has a great selection of pre-owned vehicles and even Kia certified pre-owned vehicles. It's Lion Country Kia. Ride with the confidence of a certified pre-owned Kia from Lion Country Kia. Get a vehicle 5 years or newer with mileage less than 60,000 miles. Each certified pre-owned vehicle features a thorough 164-point quality assurance inspection and reinstates Kia's original manufacturer's warranty. There's even a free 90-day XM Sirius subscription. Lion Country Kia has a large selection of certified pre-owned vehicles and a great selection of other brands to choose from too. No guesswork, just the confidence of a Kia certified pre-owned vehicle. Only at Lion Country Kia, 1334 Drive-Over Street off Shiloh Road behind Sam's Club, State College.
At Nittany Beverage, we love beer. We like drinking beer. We like talking about beer. We know beer. And we know you love beer too. Whether you prefer domestic, imports, craft, or IPAs, we can help you select the perfect beer for the perfect situation. Even better, you don't even have to leave your vehicle. So when it comes to buying beer, there really is only one choice: Nittany Beverage. Make it your choice. Visit them just off West College Avenue near downtown and online at nittanybeverage.com.
It's like stepping into a sports time machine.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Lion Country Kia Sports Talk with Steve Jones on State College's ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450.
No Steve Jones today. We hope you aren't too disappointed, but I thought I'd assemble an all-star team today to make up for that. Zach Sako here alongside former Penn State defensive lineman Aeneas Hawkins and Jamal Ellerby, also members of our Penn State Tailgate show. Not tomorrow, though, guys. So I'm glad that we get to have some conversation today from 1 to 3, but I am going to miss both of you previewing Indiana. But we get to do that ourselves in our next segment in the next half hour after 1:30. We're talking college football, playoff rankings. We did a buy or sell, and Jamal seems all in on the underdogs here.
You call them the underdogs. I call them the dogs because a hungry dog, though, they always run faster. And I want to give a shout out to the Tennessee Volunteers because I had a high school gym teacher, and every time the Tennessee Volunteers would lose, we would do wall sits for every minute for every point they lost. So it's a lot of losing seasons where my legs
sounds
got big.
miserable.
Quads are probably giant, man.
Say quads.
That's what you would think. But before you see me, you'd be like, you had to do that? Yeah, I did. So I want to shout out the Volunteers for saving a lot of high school students' legs from the pain. And I also think another week, there'll be no wall sits taking place. Another week, even though they are the underdogs, I think they're going to be walking away with the victory because you only get 1 year when it's your year. You only get one wave to ride, and I think they're riding that wave right now. This Tennessee team, they have a tough schedule every year, and this year was tough. They played Florida. They played LSU, regardless of how you see them. They played LSU and beat them bad, and they beat this Alabama team in a nail-biter. I think they go in with Georgia with that confidence after an Alabama team, and they win.
All right, we are talking Georgia and Tennessee now, and we want to get your takes on it as well. If you still want to chime in on the college football playoff rankings, somebody's overrated, somebody's underrated, let us know. Or you can get your prediction for Georgia, Tennessee, number 1 versus number 2, and that phone number is 272-9625. You put the 814 in front of it, 272-9625. We want to hear from you. All right, Jamal, so you were all in on Tennessee here. You were telling us off air that all the bets are on the money line, all the bets are on the spread, that the Volunteers get this done, and that Georgia is, in fact, a little overrated. They're still ranked number 1, but not by the college football playoff. That is, in fact, Tennessee, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I honestly think the only reason that Tennessee is the underdog going to this game because it's not at home. But I think this Tennessee team has the firepower and the skill to win this game because they score the ball and they play defense when it matters. Okay, we look at that Alabama game, and that was a tough game to say. They played defense.
They did score. They did give up a lot of points, but Alabama has how many future NFL stars on that team?
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm glad we're not weighing that game too heavily. But then you look at the remaining of their schedule. 10 points, 6 points, 13 points. This team plays defense for 4 complete quarters. And if this offense is able to maintain this team that they've had throughout these last 4 weeks when they've scored 40 points each game, I think another 40-point game and a good defensive effort, well, they win this game without a problem.
I think Tennessee is absolutely as good as advertised this year. I didn't believe in them. I don't know if you remember last week, I actually picked Will Levis in Kentucky to upset them. They went in there and absolutely beat the brakes off of a good Kentucky football team, a team that I think will finish in the top 25. They've already beaten Pitt, Florida. We all know about the Alabama game. I think Tennessee has the better quarterback. I think they have the better offense. I think their defense is playing fast and confident, and a fast and confident defense is dangerous. Now, I do think Georgia has a lot of horses and is going to have some answers for, Tennessee's electric offense, but I do think Hendon Hooker gets the job done.
This might be one of the best games we're going to see all season, aside from the college football playoff and the college. But this may, in fact, this might be the college football championship.
Yep.
Like, let's be honest. Are we going to see 3 SEC teams between Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama, and then maybe an Ohio State or Michigan? Honestly, for me right now, that Ohio State-Michigan game at the end of the season is a toss-up, even though actually you look at it, Ohio State is an 11-point favorite according to Vegas.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that one bit. I love the way Michigan runs the football. I think they have a special team, and again, they are confident as could be right now. This is the most confident I've seen a Michigan team play in quite some time.
Yeah, I love the way the Michigan team runs the football, but I don't like the way Ohio State's tackles. We looked at the way they tackle with the Penn State freshman running backs. Kaytron Allen had a field day after contact. It wasn't before contact, it was after contact. He got most of his yards, and I think against a Michigan running back group or Michigan running back committee, Ohio State's going to struggle, and that 11-point spread is something I'll be eating on too.
I also think, I was sitting there watching the Ohio State game as we all were when they played Penn State, and I remember thinking the first 3 quarters that they just did not look as physical as some of the Ohio State teams of the past that we had seen. Obviously, they can throw the ball around. We saw C.J. Stroud and Marvin Harrison. We know what they are. But I was not impressed with the overall physicality, and I think Michigan may have too much of it for them this year, especially if they find a way to slow down C.J. Stroud.
Strangely enough, and that one's back in the horseshoe. Michigan obviously won last year, and that helped parlay their efforts into the college football playoff where they were run over by the Georgia Bulldogs. So Georgia, not the number 1 team anymore. It is Tennessee according to the college football playoff rankings, and Georgia is actually at 3rd. They have quality wins up and down the board, but I can see why they might be back at 3 because South Carolina, Kent State, Missouri, Auburn, Vanderbilt, Florida, nobody really jumps off the page after a number 11 Oregon team that they destroyed. That was 49-3. That was on a neutral turf, and everybody said it's Georgia, Alabama, and everybody else. But now it's Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee, and everybody else. So is Tennessee good enough to actually pull this off? They're an 8-point underdog right now. Georgia actually was a 14-point favorite coming into this game. They are the home team. Personally, for me, I like Georgia, and I like Georgia to win convincingly, and because it's defense. They're allowing what? Let's get this. I want to get this right here. 177 yards passing and 85 yards rushing. Now, I know that's not going to be the case against a Tennessee offense with a lot of firepower, but I think Georgia's kind of been saving up the juice for this kind of spot again. They came out in full force against Oregon, and then I think they dialed it back here because they know that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
I mean, from a Georgia fan's perspective, that's the best case scenario, is that they were saving up the juice, that they have something in the bag that they have going to unfold and unleash on this Tennessee team that you have not seen thus far in this season, because you look at their level of competition. They haven't been in any close games. And that's what I'm saying. If this is a close game between a Tennessee team who has shown the dog, who has shown the fight all season against tough competition, I think this Tennessee team wins on the road, at home. It doesn't really matter. Wow. I think this Tennessee team has it this year.
I don't think a lot of people are questioning whether or not Georgia is talented enough to win this game at home. I think everybody knows they can do it. But we look at their schedule again, and we look at who they've played. I know we bring up the stats of how their defense is playing. They have not had any real confrontation all year. They have not lined up against a team that realistically had a chance to go beat them. This is the first time that they've done it, and every team does not respond the same. I don't buy the narrative that, this deep into the season, they are saving up and being calculated about what they're going to unleash when they finally have to play Tennessee. If you're a program like Georgia, a program that's coming off of a national championship, every week you're showing that you are the champion for a reason, and I just have not seen enough of it from them yet, and they're finally playing a team that can line up and beat them. It's going to be interesting.
Before we get into a Sports Center update here, guys, let's take a side, a money line, and I guess that if you're taking money line, you're obviously taking a side here too. If you're taking Tennessee, but how about Tennessee money line is 245. Georgia money line is 290. Naturally, since I am picking Georgia, I would not bet this money line because that's a hefty investment of $290 just to win 100. But Jamal, you seem to be in on 245. If you bet 100, you'd get 245 in new money.
If I bet $100, Zach, I'm taking you out to dinner because I'm telling you right now, it's coming home. Tennessee is going to win this game.
Rocky Top.
Listen, no problem with Tennessee winning this game on the road, only because Georgia doesn't pass the ball. Georgia does not pass the ball into the end zone. The quarterback has 9 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the year. I mean, it's not great stats. He doesn't turn the ball over at a high rate. But if this running game isn't clicking, then you tell me what's going to go well for this Georgia offense.
Yeah, I'm hammering the money line for Tennessee, too, just because I agree with you. I don't think Georgia has the horses to go put up a bunch of points against this defense. I don't love their quarterback play. I think Tennessee has the obvious better quarterback, the guy who can stretch the field and go make plays with his feet. And again, in this new era of football, it is so important to be able to score points, and Tennessee has showed us several times that they're able to go do that.
Home field advantage is important for me. I would take this. So you guys are taking the spread, too, as a consolation here. Tennessee +8. Now, Tennessee +14, that might be a different story. Okay, but the Tennessee +8, I have a hard time doing that because I see this as a touchdown and a field goal type of game for Georgia, just being at home, and they are the reigning national champions, and they brought back. There's already guys that are listed in the top 20 that are going to be drafted come April here next year.
Now, would you dance with me if I gave you +10 for Tennessee? Not 14, that's too much, but +10.
All right, so I mean, but that's where I'd set it at, that 9.5, 10.5 there. I'd take 9.5. I mean, 10.5 splitting hairs, so 9.5 Georgia. That's where I'd buy it at. And total's at 66.5. Let's see. I'm trying to think based on the +8. I'm trying to do some math here. What that would be 37 to be about 37 to 31. That's where it's kind of projected about right now, or 38-31 would be 69. So, or to be on the dot, it would be 38 to 30 in that ballpark. Do you see that, or is this going to be? I mean, what would your score prediction be since Tennessee's going to win?
I mean, you have two offenses who have scored, let's say, 30 points in the last 3 weeks. Tennessee has scored 40 points in the last 4 weeks. I think Tennessee scores the football, but I also think they struggle with Georgia's running attack early in the game. I think Georgia starts to tire out in the second half and later in the game when their legs start to give out. And that's where I think Tennessee pulls away. So the over, I'm going over 71. Over 71. Okay. I'm cool with that.
I think if Tennessee's going to win this game, it's going to have to be the over. I think if it's a close game, it's because Georgia's defense is playing lights out football, and I don't think they want to get into a low scoring physical matchup with Georgia. That's how they're built to win. I think you look at them up front on both sides of the ball. That's where they dominate you at. So again, if they want to win, they better score.
And that's where I'd take the under, because if I'm leaning Georgia here, that's where I'm going. The defense is going to step up in this situation here, and that's a lot of points. I don't think a team gets to 40 in this situation. Something more along the lines of like a 31-21 type of thing. I think you hold Tennessee's offense in check. I really do. That's what George is all about.
You just called this the game of the year potentially. Now you're talking about defense. You're a fan of defense, huh?
Yeah. Not every game needs to be 80 points, 90
Jamal,
points.
do you hate defense?
Defense wins championships, and the Eagles have won. So I'm counting on this.
This is a defensive guy you're sitting next to.
No doubt.
So.
Blatant disrespect for good defensive football, man. Come on.
Because he's on the defensive line, Jalen Carter. I mean, that's one of the they have not seen a guy like
No doubt about
he's
it.
not even a guy. I don't think he's human.
No doubt. And I'll tell you what, they better have a plan for him, because if they leave him single block too long and too often, Hendon Hooker's going to have a long day. I'll tell you what, you want to go affect an elite quarterback, interior pressure is the great equalizer.
And everyone raved about Jordan Davis and where he would get drafted. I mean, Jalen Carter's in contention for the number 1 spot.
I think Jalen Carter is better than Davis was. And he was a monster, like you said. I remember watching him last year with P.J. Mustipher, and we looked at each other and kind of was like, wow, who is this kid? Because he is different.
It is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, Sports Talk without Steve Jones. I like to call this version of the show. Myself, Zach Seiko, Aeneas Hawkins, and Jamal Ellerby in studio. We are taking your phone calls if you want to chat with us. We're previewing Penn State and Indiana next after a Sports Center update here on ESPN Radio.
This is your Sports Center update on State College's ESPN Radio 1037 and 1450. Sponsored by Nittany Beverage. With over 60 in-house brewers and suppliers, Nittany Beverage is the area's best choice for all of your beer, cider, and flavored malt needs.
I'm Zach Seiko. Game 5 of the Major League Baseball World Series is in the books, and Houston takes a 3-2 lead in the series after winning Game 5 3-2 in Citizens Bank Park. Some good defense by the Astros, should say some great defense by the Astros late in the game, helped preserve that victory. Game 6 is tomorrow back in Houston, and if necessary, a Game 7. The remainder of this series is in Houston, and it will be on ESPN Radio State College. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. First pitch is at 8:03. NFL Thursday Night Football last night. While everyone was focused on the Phillies, the Eagles were actually over in Houston playing the Texans. Final score 29-17. The Texans did give them a fight in the first half, tied 14-14 before Philadelphia pulled away. The Eagles are now 8-0, only undefeated team in the NFL, and that is also the first time in franchise history that the Eagles begin the season 8-0. Miles Sanders, former Penn State running back, led the way with 93 rushing yards and a touchdown. Tomorrow, Penn State football plays at Indiana against the Hoosiers. The Nittany Lions are 14-point favorites. You can tune in for coverage on ESPN Radio State College and 99.5 The Bus at 12:30 with our local pregame show. Kickoff follows at 3:30 with coverage from Steve Jones, Jack Ham, and Brian Tripp. And then our local postgame show begins approximately at 8 p.m. And in the NBA, Nets guard Kyrie Irving has been suspended without pay for 5 games for failing to disavow anti-Semitism. That is your Sports Center update here on State College's ESPN Radio. This Day in Sports History is coming up after the break.
Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap is your one-stop shop automotive stop for the Center Region's best in quality pre-owned vehicles. Best because they're handpicked by Joel and Sonny while using their over 100 years of automotive experience in doing so. Best because they're serviced, reconditioned, and priced to sell. Best because they put their reputation on the line to assure you of a carefree driving experience. Best because Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap will give you top dollar for your trade-in. And best because they care enough to make sure you're getting the vehicle that's right for you. Come see the Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned difference for yourself. Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned, 475 East College Avenue in Pleasant Gap. Call 814-954-5237. That's 814-954-5237. Or visit them 24/7 online at joelcomfortqualitypreowned.com.
November is Veterans and Military Families Month. Along with those who defend our nation, military families also endure many hardships. They can be separated from their loved ones for months on end. They are frequently relocated across the country and around the world. The simplest way to show your respect is to say thank you. Let our service members and their families know that we appreciate the sacrifices they make.
Brought to you by Joseph C. Hazel Inc. Online at josephhazelinc.com.
You're the one who protects the flock, and that requires an eye for detail. Because when safety and well-being are on the line, it's the details that can save lives. Even when no one else is watching, you see everything. Grainger gets you, and we're here for you, and all the ones who get it done with a wide range of safety products and solutions, plus board-certified safety consultants here to answer your questions. Call Click Grainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Why wait to save? Dell's Black Friday event arrives early with select deals on top tech to power any passion. The savings start now on the latest XPS and Alienware PCs powered by 12th Gen Intel Core processors. Don't forget special pricing on the latest monitors, docks, and accessories, including free shipping on everything. Just call 877-ASK-DELL for Black Friday deals. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
This is your home for Steelers football.
Pittsburgh Steelers touchdown. Go, baby. How about Najee Harris?
When you listen to the game here, you get exclusive coverage of the black and gold, the latest news, coach and player interviews, and the game.
I absolutely love it.
This is the Pittsburgh Steelers Football Network.
The Steelers are on a bye week this week. They return to action against the New Orleans Saints next Sunday on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450.
Come visit the all-new Chronix Jewelers in State College. Chronix Jewelers is celebrating their grand reopening sale. Take a break from inflation prices and save up to 60% now on diamond engagement rings, diamond pendants, and diamond study rings. Save big on wedding bands and color stone jewelry. Visit the all-new Chronix Jewelers on Atherton Street, State College. See the most stunning store in town and save money. Chronix carries by far the largest inventory in the area. Looking for engagement rings or wedding bands? Don't miss this one-time opportunity to save our diamond stud earrings in your future. Meet the fine people at Chronix. Lay away and save. Chronix grand reopening, the area's largest selection. See why the competition hates it. Gorgeous store and drastic price reductions. Chronix Jewelers, North Atherton Street, State College. And remember, Chronix offers super easy financing for those who qualify. Some exclusions may apply.
You've probably noticed a lot of changes in downtown State College over the years, but the Tavern Restaurant is still there, serving up the same great experience locals and Penn State fans alike have come to know and love since 1948. Enjoy your dinner and drinks in their recently renovated building, complete with a bit of Penn State history and a great view of Old Main. Going strong for over 70 years. Visit the historic Tavern Restaurant in downtown State College today. Go to thetavern.com for hours, menus, and to reserve your table.
This is State College's ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. Back to Sports Talk with Steve Jones and a look at this day in sports history. Sponsored by Joel Confer Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap. Imports, cars, trucks, and SUVs. You'll find them all at Joel Confer Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap. Stop by today and let Joel or Sonny save you money on your new vehicle. And if you're in need of financing, you can talk to Cameron about their great financing rates.
I'm always reluctant to do this segment because I don't give it the same justice that it deserves with Steve not being here. I mean, the events from the late 1800s, from the 1950s and 60s, Steve was there. He'll tell you he was there. We will start in 1934. After posting 7 straight shutouts to start the NFL season, the Detroit Lions beat Pittsburgh 40-7 at the University of Detroit Stadium, scored upon for the first time of the season and rushing for an NFL single-game record of 426 yards. Aeneas, I can imagine that you can appreciate that. That's defense and running the football.
Yeah, I mean, that's what football was supposed to be, even in 1934. That's good to see. Now, I'm not convinced that all three of us couldn't go rush for 400 yards in a 1934 football game. Yeah. Who knows, man? That's none of my business.
Was that the last time the Lions played defense? I mean, yeah, they play offense this season, but defense, we can't find any in Detroit.
1978, and this one's a Penn State event none of us were at, but I bet Steve would be able to remember this one very well. Penn State 27, Maryland 3 in front of a then record crowd of 78,019 people in a battle of top 5 and undefeated teams. The number 2 ranked Nittany Lions showed they were the beast of the East, led by their staunch defense. Penn State's defenders had 5 interceptions, 3 by All-American safety Pete Harris, 5 sacks, 3 by defensive end Larry Cuban, and thanks to those 5 sacks, it held number 5 ranked Maryland to minus 32 yards rushing on 43 attempts. Penn State also rushed for 210 yards, and quarterback Chuck Fusina passed for 234 yards that would result him being on the cover of Sports Illustrated later on.
I love when we kind of move forward in history a little bit, because I kind of start recognizing some of the names I'm hearing. Chuck Facina, obviously, but this is bringing a tear to my eyes. Negative 32 yards rushing on 43 attempts. It's ridiculous.
Those are bad high school numbers. I was going to say Belfont numbers some games, but sheesh.
Goodness gracious.
One thing about Pete Harris, though, he led the country in interceptions that year at 10 interceptions. Now we see that regularly from NFL players, and even that from a college player. That's still a high number in today's time.
And maybe that can be some inspiration for next week when they do play Maryland. But Maryland does have a good running attack. Talia's supposed to be back. I'll save all that for next week. 1980. Major League Baseball, Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Steve Carlton wins his third Cy Young Award and everything. I never obviously got to watch Carlton pitch, but Steve tells me that he was just utterly dominant. And there were some years where the Phillies would put together about 40 to 50 wins, and Carlton would have 25 of them when he would start.
That's nuts. I mean, we talk about 3 NL Cy Young Awards. You got to be dealing, man, no matter what time period you're in.
Yeah. Being from Philly, love Steve. Love Steve Carlton, only because I have never seen him play. But my grandfather, huge fan, and he'll tell you stories about him for days.
2001, this might have been this shows my youth and all of our youth. I think our combined age on this show would be, 70, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
less than
70.
that.
Maybe not even.
I'm taking the
under too, for sure.
26, 22, 22. Let's do some math here. It's 70 on the dot, wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
You said 70 and a half. I'm sure you did.
All right. No, you put 70 and a half. So good bookmaking there, Jamal. In 2001, like I said, this might have been, if I remember it correctly, I would have been 5 at this point. MLB World Series, Arizona beats the New York Yankees 3-2 in Game 7 at Bank One Ballpark in Phoenix for the Diamondbacks' first title, and you had co-MVPs, Arizona pitchers Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, and I can remember watching those two guys because they still had careers beyond that 2001. I mean, Randy Johnson was just... There's not going to be a single pitcher ever like him.
I mean, obviously, we know what type of pitcher Randy Johnson was. I just found out 2 weeks ago that he is a professional photographer at NFL games now.
I still didn't know that. That's breaking news.
Breaking news. So, man of many talents.
His logo for his photography company, because he actually studied that in college, and then he went pro. And then his logo is it's an image of a baseball or a circle hitting a bird from when he threw a pitch and it killed that poor unsuspecting bird.
Perfect. On brand.
And we'll finish in 2009. Now, this one I definitely remember. MLB World Series, the New York Yankees beat the Philadelphia Phillies 7-3 in Game 6 at Yankee Stadium, and that was the Bronx Bombers' 27th title and the last one that they won. I don't care if you're a Yankees fan listening. It was the last one that you won. MVP was New York outfielder Hideki Matsui, and he was electric in that whole playoff run, not just the World Series.
Yes, he was. That one still stings because that was the year we were supposed to go back to back. I mean, Philly was
after
up.
beating the Rays.
Yeah, Chase Utley and Ryan Howard. The guys were booming.
Chase Utley.
Yeah. Philly was up that year. Philly's up this year. It's not over. It's
3-2. I hope that's not deja vu, given that it is against a different. I can't stand Houston, but we will talk about the World Series. Don't get me wrong. This is a Penn State radio station here in State College, folks. So we are talking Nittany Lions and Indiana Hoosiers. I'm Zach Sako with former Penn State defensive lineman Aeneas Hawkins and Jamal Ellerby, all hosting for the voice of Penn State football, Steve Jones, who probably wheels up at this point. Maybe they were. I think they were set to take off at 2. So I hope that Steve was listening, or at least not to this day in sports history, maybe everything else before and after it. But Penn State and Indiana going up against it. There's a lot of angles to this game. I want to throw this out there first, guys. Is this a trap game for Penn State? Because you're coming off an emotional loss. You're going to be looking ahead subconsciously. And yes, you played football, you played under these James Franklin teams. It is tough not to say, well, Ohio State's a bigger game than Indiana. Everybody knows that. The fans know that. The players subconsciously, yes, it's a 1-0 mentality, but to a certain point, just being human, you're going to look at certain games on the schedule. And I would argue that this is the most boring game on the schedule. You got to fly to Bloomington. You got to play an Indiana team with no juice. You don't know who their quarterback's going to be. They're missing their star players. They have no business really. They were predicted to go 2-10. The fact that they're 3-5 to this point in time. So from that, and then going into a 7-2 Maryland team most likely next week. I don't expect Maryland to lose, but they're going to be 7-2 versus a 7-2 Penn State team, right? Or again, is this a trap game because there's just no juice to it?
Yeah, I would love to be able to sit here and say it's not a trap game, but if we just look at the course of history and how some of these James Franklin-led teams have performed once they do reach that 2-loss mark, once they do get done playing Ohio State and Michigan, maybe a Michigan State every now and then, they really seem to struggle to get back on their horse and keep moving forward. So, yeah, I think it is a trap game. Obviously, as a player, you're young. You're 18, 19, 20 years old. You know who the good teams are, and you know who the teams that you're supposed to absolutely beat down are. They know that they're the better team, but to get them to go in there and perform at the highest level, that's the trick, because again, the emotional roller coaster, man, it's hard to stay off of when you're a young player.
I think it's only a trap game if you fall for the trap, and we all see it coming. I mean, this is an Indiana team that poses no threat offensively to this Penn State defense. This is an Indiana team that poses very little threat offensively to this Penn State defense. So my question is, where's the trap and what are they setting up? Where can this Penn State team falter? And if there's a 4-quarter game, not a second half game, I really think this Penn State team should win because they're coming out, of course, in the first half the same way they came out in many games in this first half, scoring a minimum of 17 points. The only time they haven't is when they played higher competition, the Michigans, the Ohio States. They also didn't struggle finding the end zone. So if you don't struggle finding the end zone against an Ohio State defense, how in God's green earth do you struggle finding the end zone against an Indiana team? You say the trap
because you're asleep. You sleepwalk into this game. I mean, we've seen that. Okay, until the Eagles woke up in the second half. That was a 14-14 game, if you remember, Jamal, against the Texans. And the Texans are the worst team in football.
I disagree. That's an NFL topic. The Texans aren't that bad. Texans aren't that bad. But no, again, you say the Penn State team, they could walk in and just fall asleep. Yes, they could. We don't want to play. But again, this team poses no threat offensively or defensively. They're talking about changing and putting their third-string quarterback in strictly because he can run. Strictly because this Penn State team is so good at pass defense that they're saying, let's just try to run it down their throats like the other teams have. And if that's their only way you're going to win this game offensively with a third-string quarterback who poses no threat passing the ball, then Manny Diaz is going to send the house and blitz heavily, and we're going to have another Auburn game on our hands.
And that quarterback you're bringing up is Dexter Williams II, who has, Steve's talked about this a lot, no tape on him. But that's kind of the case when you haven't played a college football snap. There was no tape on Drew or or Christian Veillere until they actually got on the field. There was no tape on Callie McManus for Minnesota, who had until this season when he was put in because Tanner Morgan was hurt. And I think that actually hurts Penn State, bringing in a Dexter Williams II, who, for a lack of a better comparison, because we don't have that tape, but this kind of reminds me of a situation of a Denard Robinson from Michigan, a guy who was definitely not a pass first, but that running ability was able to allow Michigan to really get over the top and scare you and surprise you when you were expecting the run. And all of a sudden, it's a play action. It's like, man, he's got 3-4 guys wide open. And then when you have a window like that, you can throw to just about anybody. Aeneas, should this defense be concerned if Indiana does try to go forward with Dexter Williams II, because they haven't seen a running quarterback like this to this point?
Yeah, I think the only concerning part to me is, again, that there's no film on him. So it's hard to prepare for a quarterback that you haven't seen on tape. You don't know what his strengths and weaknesses are, and you're going to have to kind of learn some of those things on the fly. But again, I'm not concerned with Indiana's offense as a whole. But again, the defense has already played in a bunch of games where they've been asked a lot. It's been emotional games. They've had a lot on the line, and this game just does not feel that way. Defense is a side of the football that is very much run on emotions and want to and passion. And I talked about that a little bit on Steve's show earlier this week. So if they come in there asleep, Indiana's going to have tricks up their sleeves. They're going to call their best plays, and again, they have nothing to lose, which is what makes them dangerous. There's nothing
absolutely
they won't do.
Nothing to lose in this case.
I think that's the best part, actually, is that Penn State has you're saying Indiana has absolutely nothing to lose. And Penn State has everything to lose, but I think Franklin knows that. And the whole week, we've been hearing about depth. We've been hearing about depth and rotation, getting new players on the field and seeing them, getting them other reps. I think that's why you don't go in this game asleep. Because the guy who normally wouldn't be in the game, well, he's in the game, and this is his moment, and he's going to make the most out of his moment.
There's also a reason he's not on the football field to begin with, and it's no disrespect to any. That's why there is a depth chart. There are guys that are better than other individuals, right? And we're gonna have to talk about that at length, because if you look at the injury report that doesn't exist for Penn State,
It's long. It's long this week.
It's long against a game that you don't want to lose any more troops out there. You don't want anybody else to get banged up when your most important game is still on that schedule. It is Maryland. They'll beat Rutgers. They'll beat Michigan State, no problem. But you have to get through Indiana to get to the game that now you have to say, all right, this is our most important. That Maryland game makes or breaks the season. Nobody else does. Because they're not challenging. Rutgers they beat Indiana, but honestly, I think they play that game 10 times. Indiana probably going to win 8 of them. And Michigan State's just in shambles. They are. But back to I didn't mean to cut you off, Jamal. Back to your point that, guys, yes, they're playing up because they're getting their moment. But let's take the offensive line, for example, here for Penn State. And this is a little concerning. You still have Landon Tangwall out. Potentially. We don't know. But since he wasn't available at practice Wednesday, I'm assuming that he's not going to play. And he injured himself in warm-ups, which is kind of really... What did you do in warm-ups where you have missed, 3 games now? And all this practice? Caden Wallace, we've seen how important he is and why he has been the starter, and everyone's calling for him to be benched, put Bryce Effner in. You saw why that wasn't the case against Ohio State last week. And then now... Olu Fashanu might be out of this game. He's supposed to be the top offensive tackle in next year's draft, and he might be missing from today's game.
That's a detriment. That's what hurts. Olu hurts on that side.
That's great that all these guys are going to get some opportunities. They're going to be amped up there. I agree with you that they're not going to be falling asleep, quote unquote, at the wheel, but now you're going against guys for Indiana that do start that wouldn't. They're starters at Indiana for a reason, and you're going against backups for possibly third stringers for Penn State here on tomorrow.
I think the only fear about that is the offensive line. Like you're worried about how well this offensive line handles the starters from this Indiana pass rush, because this offensive line, the starting group, they struggled the entire season. They haven't been the fortitude or the great offensive line that you expect from a Penn State organization, Penn State University, and you need them to not only establish the running game, because the passing game has been hit or miss with this Penn State offense. So you need the offensive line to not only be a force, but to be great on Saturday to allow this Penn State offense to run the ball. And also, I don't think that's a problem, though. Again, I don't think that's a problem, because James Franklin, he has not opened up about the depth chart. He has not opened up about the injury report. But I think if this was Ohio State, these guys would be playing. If this was Ohio State, I think these guys would suit up. And the reason they're not suiting up is because we are going up against an Indiana team that, again, poses no threats offensively or defensively. They allowed 100 rushing yards to an Idaho team. They allowed 100 rushing yards to an Idaho team, and no disrespect to Idaho, they're a great FCS team, but they're a great FCS team. They don't belong anywhere in a Big Ten conversation. This Indiana team, I think this is a great way to see how your program shapes up against the Indiana team. Not the starters, not Sean Clifford, but your program as a whole. How good is this Penn State team, not only for this week, but for years to come?
I think, go ahead, Zach.
I want to save this for the next half hour, because we do have to get to our play-by-play call of the day, but this conversation is going to continue. Penn State versus Indiana preview. This is important. We need to figure this out. Plus, we're going to talk about Penn State's quarterback situation. Technically, a starter has not been named. Does that mean Drew Aller will start against the Hoosiers in Bloomington? When we come back from break, we'll have our play-by-play call of the day next and continue our conversation with the Nittany Lions and the Hoosiers on ESPN Radio State College.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. You're driving along and some nimrod cuts you off. You hit the horn. Jeez, it sounds like a goose in distress. Time to head over to eBay Motors. They have horns for every make and model, not to mention horn pads, steering wheels, wiring, and more. 122 million parts. You can even go for an upgrade. Look, Mr. Cutoff Man needs a new seat cover. Try eBay Motors, pal. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Provember is back at Lowe's, and so are the savings. Power the possibilities with savings on the DeWalt tools you trust to get the job done. Like the DeWalt 16-piece reciprocating saw blade set was $29.98, now $19.98. And the DeWalt 14-piece assorted drill bit set was $16.98, now $9.98. These deals are tough to beat, and so are the tools. It always pays to be a pro at Lowe's. Offer ends 12/28 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. Now, the play-by-play call of the day. Sponsored by Nittany Beverage. With over 60 in-house brewers and suppliers, Nittany Beverage is the area's best choice for all of your beer, cider, and flavored malt needs.
This is the best play-by-play I have ever heard.
That'll all be forgotten if you can come through here. Tying run at first, winning run at the plate. Phillies down to their last out on a 3-2 pitch to Nick Castellanos. Bouncing ball to short. Pena's there, steps into the throw. Astros take Game 5 in a thriller. 3-2 the final score. And 3-2 is the series as it goes back to Houston.
Yes, it does indeed. That was the final World Series game at Citizens Bank Park here. 3-2 was the final. 3-2 is also the series score, with Houston going back to Houston. And they will host at least the next game, possibly 2, as the Astros and the Phillies wind down the World Series. Game 6 is tomorrow night. We will carry that on ESPN Radio State College. After the Penn State-Indiana game, we will jump into coverage of that one. First pitch is at 8:03. We're talking Penn State, Indiana next here on ESPN Radio.
Sports Talk with Steve Jones is a production of State College's ESPN Radio 1450, WQWK State College.
This is Brent Musburger's action update on ESPN 1450.
Penn State 23-2 all-time against Indiana. The Nittany Lions visit the Hoosiers tomorrow. Memorial Stadium as a 14-point road favorite, total 53.5. Pitt a 3.5-point home favorite against Syracuse. Panthers have won 17 of the last 20 against the Orange. 6 of the last 10 decided by single digits. Eagles win, but did not cover as 14-point favorites, beating Houston 29-17 on the road yesterday. Houston 3-2 over Philadelphia to take Game 5 of the World Series. Game 6 Saturday, Houston $1.35 home favorite. Philadelphia plus 125. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com and save an additional $30 when you enter the promo code VSIN, VSIN at checkout at omahasteaks.com. For more, go to VSIN.com. Mike Sun at ESPN 1450.
The winds are blowing and the snow has started to fall. Be sure to examine your trees for broken limbs, split trunks, and dead wood. Doing a self-inspection now can save you a hassle later. If you have tree problems, call Andrew Moore Tree Surgeon LLC. Andy is a certified arborist with a horticultural degree from Penn State, and certified arborist Robert Burfield is a full partner with over 18 years experience. Andy and Rob take pride in providing expert service to homeowners and businesses. They have a solid reputation of customer satisfaction with their attention to detail and prompt, courteous service. With nearly 60 years of tree healthcare experience, Andy and Robert have seen it all. So whether it's trimming, pruning, removing dead or storm-damaged limbs to protect your home or property, tree or stump removal, or an evaluation of your trees, depend on Andrew M. Moore Tree Surgeon LLC to get the job done right. They're fully insured and offer 24-hour phone service at 234-0186. Don't trust your trees to just anyone. Trust Andrew M. Moore Tree Surgeon LLC, serving the Center region since 1975. Call 234-0186.
Tune in for PA Prep Sports Breakdown. Join Zach Sako and Jason Lord every Wednesday at 5 as they discuss all things high school sports in Pennsylvania, including your local area favorites, Bald Eagle area, Bellefonte, Penns Valley, Phillipsburg, Osceola, and State College. Plus hear directly from the coaches and players themselves with exclusive interviews only heard on the show. That's PA Prep Sports Breakdown. Wednesdays at 5 on ESPN Radio 1037 and 1450.
Provember is back at Lowe's, and so are the savings. Power the possibilities with savings on the DeWalt tools you trust to get the job done. Like the DeWalt 16-piece reciprocating saw blade set was $29.98, now $19.98. And the DeWalt 14-piece assorted drill bit set was $16.98, now $9.98. These deals are tough to beat, and so are the tools. It always pays to be a pro at Lowe's. Offer ends 12/28 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. See better and stay safe on the road with our visibility event. Right now, you can earn up to $20 in bonus rewards when you buy a pair of Rain-X Quantum Wiper Blades and Sylvania Silver Star Ultra headlights. Take advantage of the rewards from October 31st until November 13th, in-store or on AutoZone.com.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply. Offer available to AutoZone Rewards members.
Honor Penn State Athletics military veterans with the opening of the new exhibit, I Am a Penn Stater, Nittany Lions in World War II, at the Penn State All Sports Museum. I Am a Penn Stater chronicles the contributions these athletes made during the conflict, from their training to fighting on battlefields to their post-war occupations. Check out their letters, photographs, diaries, and artifacts today at the Penn State All Sports Museum, located at the southwest corner of Beaver Stadium. Go to psusports.com/museum or call 865-0044.
This is an important notice to all U.S. taxpayers. The IRS is giving away billions of dollars in tax savings through a federal program called the Fresh Start Initiative to aid delinquent taxpayers. This initiative was established for anyone facing financial hardship and unable to pay their back taxes. Qualifying and enrolling in this program will stop all collections, settle your delinquent tax problem, and even reduce what you owe by thousands of dollars. Call the hotline at People's Tax Relief to see if you qualify and get this free information by dialing 800-285-2521. If you have unfiled tax returns or cannot afford to pay your personal or business back taxes, you can now get the help you need. One simple phone call can resolve your tax problem and save you thousands of dollars. To see if you qualify and to get this important free information, call 800-285-2521. 800-285-2521. 800-285-2521.
You've probably noticed a lot of changes in downtown State College over the years, but the Tavern Restaurant is still there, serving up the same great experience locals and Penn State fans alike have come to know and love since 1948. Enjoy your dinner and drinks in their recently renovated building, complete with a bit of Penn State history and a great view of Old Main. Going strong for over 70 years, visit the historic Tavern Restaurant in downtown State College today. Go to thetavern.com for hours, menus, and to reserve your table.
Lion Country Kia Sports Talk with Steve Jones. Live on ESPN Radio 1037 and 1450. Featuring interviews and conversation from the voice of Penn State football and basketball. Now, here's Steve Jones.
It's Sports Talk without Steve Jones. Zach Sako filling in with co-hosts Aeneas Hawkins and Jamal Ellerby today. We are talking Penn State and Indiana, previewing the game a little more extensively here to start off our second hour together. And then we'll get into the Major League Baseball World Series and finish with the NFL. Sports Talk with Steve Jones is sponsored by Lion Country Kia, 1334 Drivable Street behind Sam's Club and State College, or online at lioncountrykia.com. They have the new models in stock. That is right, brand new models, and they don't just have a few. They have the 2023s in stock. Check it out, lioncountrykia.com. Penn State, Indiana. Penn State is a 14-point favorite. Total set at about 49.5, depending on where you look. So that would be about a 31-17 type of game. That's what Vegas is expecting. And I feel like I'm ruining Steve's show because Steve's never placed a sports bet in his life. He's never worried about the spread, the total. Anytime I say that stuff to him, he just looks at me like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that here?" And we went through it all. We went money line spread for Georgia, Tennessee. We went total. Steve's probably like, just chilling on the plane, right? And he can't listen to us because he's up in the air and he's probably just chilling. He's like, they're talking about sports betting on my show.
Steve's senses are kicking in, man.
Yeah.
He knows what's going on out here right now.
Kicks his feet up, he's in first class with everybody, and they're ruining my show.
I know. Steve knows so much about sports stuff. He just placed one bet, he could be rich. That could be the one he hits on, man.
But that's the conflict of interest. He knows so much because he's invested in, and he loves Penn State and he loves the game. Yep. Could never, and that's the thing with how invested he is. Like, I'm not trying to disrespect Steve here, but with the amount of time that he puts into Penn State and that week's opponent, he's not going to, and he can't obviously wager on these games, and he would never. He's never wagered, period. But if you ask him about another college football team, I'm saying he's so invested in Penn State that it's like, do you want to trust him on a team that he has limited familiarity with because he's so like he'll tell you everything about Penn State and then just take some notes down and say, okay, Indiana, Michigan does this. What is Maryland's missing a player, right? So it's like he knows everything about Penn State. And then let's just take this for example, and this is something that Micah Shrewsbury said as well, and it's the benefit to go to basketball real quick. Penn State's going to play fast this year. Men's basketball team, they slow the rock down. We're gonna try to beat you in the slowest way possible. Score first team to 50 wins. They're gonna try to drop 80, 90 every single game.
Yeah, they're going to be flying around. I think it's cool because it's similar to Penn State football in the beginning of the year in a sense where it's like you have some veteran presences. You got the Seth Lundys and the Miles Dredds of the world, but then you got this young, talented freshman class, and that's all I keep hearing about. Evan Mahaffey is a name that I just keep hearing is going to be electric this year. So, I hope so. He's the one that kind of gets lost in the conversation because of all the superstars that they brought in. No doubt about it. I think it's going to be the perfect blend, and I hope it is for him. I would love to see Shrews go have a great year.
Yeah, shout out Coach Shrews for not only his transfer portal work, work, but his recruiting work as well, because I think this Penn State class is one of the deepest the Penn State has had in years.
No, it's the best. It's the best ever.
Yeah, the deepest.
The recruiting class, it's not only deep, but it is the best rated ever. It's better than the Tony Carr, the Lamar Stevens, if you can believe that.
It's easily believable. I mean, this team is so deep. I think they're going to shoot the ball better than they ever have in Penn State history. I mean, they have more shooters than they've ever had. Even the big Mike Hughes, he stretches the floor. They have so many players from Miles Dredd who should be getting more time. Dalian Johnson, he's progressed not only as a scorer, but as a point guard. Last season, you saw him only playing the shooting guard position. Now he's doing a little more ball handling and distributing. This team not only has more experience, but they have more chemistry together. I expect this Penn State team to make some noise and potentially sneak in to that March Madness.
I would love that.
That's lofty expectations. I unfortunately can't go that far because of how good the Big Ten is.
Super deep.
I mean, the Big Ten might take 8. But you got to be able to sneak. I mean, getting into that top 8's already tough to begin with.
But they're not a team that doesn't play high competition. They're a team, if they get these wins and they sneak these wins, well, they're highly ranked wins. And if they're able to maintain the same pace they maintained last year, which is 50-50, and just do a little bit above average there, they're going fast. I'm telling you, their pace might be one of the, not necessarily the highest. That's a stretch, but they are going to be like. Are you concerned about defense? Because I am.
I'm concerned in the defense and the fact that you still have an inexperienced front court. I mean, John Harrow was the reason that you had any relative defense on the front court, and he wasn't that big to begin with, but he played much bigger than he was.
Yeah.
I think it's Kebani, because I know the J's silent, but I can't remember how you can't pronounce. I will know on Monday, November 7th here when they play against Winthrop. But talented, 4-star, might be the best recruit in this freshman class, but inexperienced. When you go up against a Hunter Dickinson, like, he's going to be able to. But you will have that point in time to get that experience and get better. I just think some that freshman experience will show up from time to time. But his athleticism and his understanding for the game at this point is a big difference. Unfortunately, he's kind of the lone. It's the same thing with John Harrow. Kebani is bigger, but he's kind of the lone guy on the front court. So is he going to play 40 minutes every night? I don't think he is.
It's gonna be tough. One thing I do want to not leave left unsaid is the fact that his players, Shrewsbury's players, are going to play hard for him. That relationship that they have, the dynamic they seem to have, seeing them on the sidelines of football games, they seem like a close-knit group, and it seems genuine. It doesn't seem forced. And anytime you have that, man, your players are going to go to bat for you, and you have young talent. You have veterans who are going to make everybody else step up. I'm telling you, it feels like a perfect storm for Penn State basketball this year.
Well, in terms of coaching, I think Coach Struz is the most believable coach on Penn State University. I mean, he's coming from the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown was here, and Penn State just kicking it with them. I mean, once you build that credibility with your players, it's a lot easier to not, one, make a relationship, but to sustain a relationship as the head honcho. And Coach Struz, not only being the head honcho of that team, he's also a father figure. He's just a friendly, lovable guy. And this team, talk about the depth. There's one guy I want to shout out specifically. We talked about Dalian Johnson, his progression. We talked about Miles Dredd and Seth Lundy, but Cameron Winter, the transfer, if he's able to get time, he was a transfer in Drexel University who was getting buckets, and I think he's able to do that on the NCAA level of Division I basketball here at Penn State as well.
He wasn't one of the captains then, was he?
No, he wasn't. Andrew Funk was.
Funk was the other one.
From Bucknell. And you speak about those transfers that come from smaller schools to Penn State. I mean, Jalen Pickett is going to. He does not get tired. He will play 40 minutes a night.
100%.
Almost every single night. It'll be weird if he doesn't play 40 minutes. And it's Keba Jai. Because I remember I was like, what did Steve tell me the J was silent or the N was silent? The N is actually silent. And it is Keba Jai. That is a name you need to know, along with Jameel Brown and the Mahaffey that you said, Evan Mahaffey, and all those guys that have transferred in. So that's Penn State men's basketball in a nutshell. But going back to my point that, knowing these things are important when you're scouting these games, because I think a lot of people that aren't familiar with Penn State are going to expect these games to be 60 to 55. Oh, they have some new guys. No, they have the guys in the backcourt to be able to push the pace, because they have to now. They have no choice, that they need to push the pace to out-athleticize people in that regard, basically out-stamina everybody. And that'll be fun to talk about in future shows, because I hope to, when Rutgers plays and Steve has to fly to Piscataway, I hope that we can do this all over again too in a couple weeks here. But Aeneas Hawkins, Jamal Ellerby joining myself, Zach Sako in studio on Sports Talk without Steve Jones. Penn State, Indiana tomorrow, kickoff 3:30. ABC if you want to watch. ESPN Radio State College and 99.5 The Bus if you do want to listen. Streaming at foreverstatecollege.com. We were starting to get into the fact of Penn State might be a little banged up. Yes, there's guys that are going to try to rise to the occasion, but you also have to think about the fact that James Franklin might be starting to rotate some extra guys in, see some younger guys on the depth chart, both offensively and defensively. We haven't even had a quarterback named for both teams. Both teams, Connor Bazelak or Dexter Williams II. Is it going to be Sean Clifford or Drew Aller? I'll open it up to you guys. Jamal, is it Sean Clifford or Drew Aller tomorrow? Not who you want, but who you think it will be.
I think it's a foolish conversation just to have to say that Drew Aller is going to start on Saturday, seeing as though how many offensive line players are already banged up. I mean, James Franklin could potentially lose his job on site if he puts a 5-star freshman quarterback out there with a banged up, brittled offensive line.
that would be kind of cruel, honestly. I hope Pat Kraft isn't that, just sitting in his chair and saying
daring him to put Drew Aller with the line.
Listen, it's something to think about. Then Drew Aller gets injured. Penn State University's future is at question. I think James Franklin's job would also be.
I mean, it is football. You kind of you risk that at that. But look at Tua, who sustained the head injury, and he's come back out. And man, I saw the post on social media when Tua came back out for his first game after the injury, and he was running headfirst into defenders, and the caption said "F it, we ball." Concussion, what? F it, we ball. So that's really what it is. I mean, you kind of have to have that mentality. It's Aeneas. You're the former player. So how often does, could I get injured ever cross your mind as a player? I know it's different for everybody else, but for you, is that a
it's a great point, because a lot of people don't get to experience that, right? That everybody gets hurt. It's a part of football. Injuries happen.
Bumps and bruises happen, though. But this is different. Being hurt and being injured are two different things.
No doubt about it. So when you're actually injured, when you're done, when you're hurt, you have to come back. That is why athletic trainers are there. These kids that are playing on the field, especially young guys. The guys who are younger than 22, 23 years old are not thinking about their body or their best interests. I'm a guy that had 6 surgeries. My mom is listening to this radio show right now. She'll call in and tell you if she has to. They had to fight to keep me off of the field. That is universal for anybody playing at this level. You're going to want to go out there. You're a competitor. You want to go win. So, yeah, it is dangerous. Like, the tweet is funny, but Tua's not out there running around thinking, I got to think about the long-term health and the effects that this might have on my body. You're out there competing. You're trying to win. It's that simple. And I think it's funny you bring up the offensive line being banged up and maybe Drew Aller not playing because of that. Let's also bring up
so what happens next year when Sean Clifford's not on this football roster and you say, man, the offensive line's banged up. We can't put Drew out there.
That's not realistic. But my point is, Drew Aller is not a super duper mobile guy. And we haven't seen a bunch of them, so maybe people haven't realized that yet. Sean Clifford is the more athletic of the two. So to me, when you ask who's going to be the starting quarterback, to me it's Sean Clifford, because if you're going to be running around, if you have a makeshift offensive line in there,
you want your veteran
You want the veteran in who can move around in the pocket, who can get outside of the pocket if he has to and stretch the field.
I agree with that. I think that Sean Clifford will be in. And if it were up to me, I would still put Sean Clifford out there. Do I want Drew rotating in? Not randomly, but I would like to think that Penn State's going to be up by 3 or 4 touchdowns going into the third, the fourth quarter, similar to Ohio. And you can say, all right, Drew, we have some cushion. Let's say, honestly, even with the 2, I think 2 is still close because you can swing the game if you're Indiana. You're still a Big Ten team. But if you're up by 3 touchdowns late in the third quarter, why not let Drew spin it at that point?
And I'll say this, too, at this point. There are guys on the roster right now. I was one of the guys where you don't put them in the game if you don't have 2-3 touchdowns of a lead to let them go out there and experiment and have fun. I think we've seen enough of Drew Aller to know that they're confident enough to put him in close games. I would like to see them put their money where their mouth is throughout the stretch of the season. You have Maryland coming up. You have Indiana, Rutgers, Michigan State. These are teams that you want your young guys to go in, get the experience, because Drew's proven he can go down there and lead the offense and go score points. He's not a guy that has to come off the bench just when you're up by 21 points. He's a 5-star quarterback, number 1 in the country.
And he's the number 2 guy for a reason.
But he is the number 2 guy for a reason. But again, he is a guy they're comfortable putting in to go win that game. Franklin does not put him over Christian Veyer on the roster, who went and led a Penn State team to a win against Rutgers and looked pretty good doing it. This tells me that he's ready to put him in at any time.
You bet your bottom dollar you're going to see a lot more Drew Allard throughout the remainder of the season, because this Penn State team, the way they played against Ohio State, if they're able to keep that effort, able to keep that energy and that attention to detail, well, they should have a lot of games where you have a large and vast leads. And then you put Drew Allard, and then you see what he's able to do when you have those 3 touchdown leads or 2 touchdown leads you're talking about late in game. But you should be seeing more of Drew Allard, and it's James Franklin's job as a coach not only to establish this Penn State team offensively, to get these leads early on, but to dominate these inferior competitions, these inferior competitors, to not only establish Penn State as a prominent university for the remainder of this season, finishing 10-2, but for next season. Because you saw what he did for the recruiting this year. You saw what he did for the transfer portal. Imagine if this team finishes 10-2, losing to Ohio State in a close game, which regardless of what the score was, if you watch it, it was a close game.
Let's stop thinking about it after 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Exactly. And he lost to a Michigan team in the second half. Recruits, high school students, they're all thinking about, wow, this Penn State team, they're missing me. They could use me. They're missing that one player. And I hope the recruits were getting from the offensive line. That's what I'm hoping James Franklin is looking to impress people, because that's probably where this Penn State team has a lot of room to grow. But outside of that, I think Sean Clifford should be the starting quarterback for the remainder of the season, and Drew Allard should be the close backup, ready to step in at any given moment, because you should be able to put him in at any given moment for the remainder of the season.
I would make a conscious effort outside of Maryland to rotate Drew in.
Absolutely.
Even if Penn State, honestly, there are people that have said, you don't want to break away the game plan, you don't want to break away the flow. But you can do that against Rutgers and Michigan State. You can throw Drew in the second quarter and say, hey, this is still a close game. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah, and I would buy into that narrative a little bit more had Drew Allard not been the second string quarterback for the entirety of the year. He's getting a lot of reps in practice with the ones, with the twos. They know what it feels like to have Drew Allard quarterback. They know what plays to call that work. There are several good-on-good segments throughout a practice throughout the entirety of the year. So they're playing against Penn State's best defense, the Jair Browns and Joey Porters. They know what works and doesn't work with Drew Allard. It's not like it's unfamiliar territory. The next thing I would tell you is that we talk about this being an emotional roller coaster and guys not being maybe locked in or as ready to get up for this football game. That is only true for the veterans who have played a bunch of football, the Sean Cliffords, the Juice Scruggs of the world who have been here, done that. You know who it's not an emotional roller coaster for? It's the freshmen, the young guys who are itching for opportunities to play, the J.J. Vandenbergs, the Amin Vanovers, who have been waiting for their opportunity to go out and show that they belong. They're going to be super duper locked in for this game against Indiana, which is why I say there's value in rotating guys and getting them some reps, because they're going to be ready to play.
All right, we're going to take a break here on ESPN Radio State College. This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones. I'm Zach Sako, joined by Jamal Ellerby and Aeneas Hawkins. When we return, Aeneas, I want to ask you about it. I don't want you to have to go back to this, but the 2020 game, the motivational factor from that with the remaining players that are still on that team and the coaching staff, how that could factor in, and who we will think have a big game tomorrow against the Hoosiers. It's Sports Talk with Steve Jones on ESPN Radio State College.
On the Penn State Sports Network. From Learfield, this is Inside Penn State Athletics. Here's the voice of the Nittany Lions, Steve Jones.
The Nittany Lion football team plays at Memorial Stadium in Bloomington tomorrow against Indiana. And coming up on Inside Penn State Athletics, we'll hear from guard Sal Wormley on the Penn State Sports Network from Learfield.
Pennsylvanians are creating their own soundtrack. Thanks to PA Lottery Scratch-Offs, excitement's back. Pennies, nickels, dimes, or quarters, no matter your choice, scratching's always in order. With big top prizes and second chance drawings, thrills await. They're out there calling. If it's excitement you seek and you're looking for action, play the PA Lottery. And keep on scratching. Must be 18 or older. Please play responsibly. Benefits older Pennsylvanians every day.
Another season of women's and men's college sports is underway. Follow your alma mater or favorite team in their pursuit of the prestigious Learfield Directors Cup at L Directors Cup on Twitter and online at thedirectorscup.com. Trophies will be awarded in June 2023 to the winning institutions in all competitive divisions. Learfield Directors Cup, the crowning achievement in college athletics.
The Nittany Lions take on Indiana tomorrow in Bloomington. Guard Sal Wormley says there were some positives out of last week's game.
Yeah, after every loss, you got to take the time and, of course, look at the mistakes you've done as a team or as an individual but also look at the positive of what happened, and seeing like how y'all can accomplish something if certain things just changed a little bit. But like be able to look at the positives, it gives you a different outlook to be able to, okay, I could do this, but okay, we have a chance to do something.
What did they learn out of the final 9 minutes?
Just stay with your teammates, man. Like no matter what's going on, always have your teammates back. Always be there for each other, encourage each other. Just make sure y'all stay together as a family and as a unit. Because of injuries, there have been a lot of moving parts on the offensive line of late. You know, it's always about the next guy up. Everybody got to prepare like they're a starter. Everybody got to be ready for the opportunity to come because you never know what's going to happen. And so with any moving parts we do or anything that happens, I always feel confident of the guys that's next to me or that's anybody that's in the game at the moment. He also feels Caden Wallace is getting better. Caden Wallace, great dude, balling per usual, just like any other old lineman, working hard. Of course, I talked before about how his preparation has changed from last year to this year. The Nittany Lions take on Indiana tomorrow at Memorial Stadium in Bloomington. Tomorrow's kickoff set for 3:30. We're on beginning at 2 o'clock. For Inside Penn State Athletics, I'm Steve Jones on the Penn State Sports Network from Learfield.
He's about as reliable as a minivan with 150,000 miles. And just like the van, he's been to a few Little League games in his day. Back to Sports Talk with Steve Jones on ESPN Radio 103.7 FM.
Talking a little financial advice and tax help off the air. Maybe we should turn this into a financial advice conversation on ESPN Radio. Zach Seiko, Aeneas Hawkins, Jamal Ellerby. We are previewing Penn State, Indiana. We still want to hear from you. We haven't heard from anybody yet. 272-9625. That is 272-9625. You put the 814 in front of it. We want to hear your score predictions for Penn State and Indiana, and that's exactly what we're going to do here in just a moment. Aeneas, I posed the question of, does the 2020 game still linger for anybody on the Penn State staff, on the Penn State roster? Because I felt like the 2019 Minnesota game did. Like it was still personal, and then they came into the whiteout and we saw what happened. Is this kind of the case here? Yeah, so I remember going into last year, and we were playing Indiana at home. That's true. Yeah, 24-0. Yeah, that's all we talked about all week long was getting our revenge a little bit on what they did, and I'm sure it's the same thing this year. Coach Franklin does this thing where anytime we have a game like that stings a little bit more for whatever reason, he will lead into the week by playing the video in front of the team of whatever it was. So PJ's on the. I mean, PJ had a big game that day. PJ had a big game that day. There are a lot of guys who had direct impacts in that game. Some guys who were on the sidelines and were young, like Hakeem Beamon, Sean Clifford, quote unquote young. Nonetheless, but those guys felt the effects of that. So I'm sure it'll be a contributing factor. They know not to go in there and play asleep because they can and will lose if they do that. And we know that Tom Allen is going to have that team juiced up, letting them know that they've done it before and they can do it again. So again, I do think it adds an interesting factor to the game for sure. All right, Jamal, I want to throw this back at you. What players do you expect to have a big game with guys that are going to be, I mean, I'm not expecting Kevon Lee to play again, and we have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure out who's available and who's not, but I think you're going to be missing 3 starting offensive linemen. Now, Hunter Norzad stepped up, so it's no disrespect for Landon Tangwall, but the guard position is secure. Center's secure. Right guard's secure with Sal Wormley. Bryce Effner is going to start at right tackle because Caden Wallace is still out. Now, aside from the Ohio State game, Effner's been better than anticipated. But left tackle now, that's the blind side for Sean. I have no idea what's going on over there. I've heard great things about Vanga Ioane, that he is just a mammoth of an athlete. He can move buildings if he wanted to. He could probably push some of these State College skyscrapers around if you asked him to. He could see the start at left tackle, or maybe they move him to right and move Bryce Effner to left. Still, there's that chemistry factor involved. Aside from that, which players offensively and defensively are X factors for Penn State tomorrow? Yeah, I have one offensive and I have one defensively. Offensively, you talked about the troubles the offensive line may have or all the people that are banged up. And I just want to point to the running back group because you look at Nicholas Singleton, he's not a running back so far this season that's able to get yards after contact. So if this offensive line is struggling and you need to establish the running game because that's the only way Penn State has won games this season, well, I'm looking at Katron Allen to be the man amongst boys that he's been all season long and continue to get yards after contact. If he's able to do that,
and he's able to just to be Katron Allen running between the tackles, following his blockers because you need those blockers to block well, then Katron Allen would have the biggest day on Saturday. Now, defensively, I'm pointing to this Indiana team who doesn't run the ball very well, and I don't think they're going to run the ball very well against this Penn State team who feel free to send the house because, again, they have one of the best secondaries in college football. And now it's the secondary I'm going to point to. I think it's going to have a great day. I'm going to say Zakeem Wheatley. I'm picking Zakeem Wheatley, not one, because he's not a starter, but he is one of those rotational players, and two, Franklin should get a lot of depth. He's a freshman who Franklin wants to see out there, and he's a takeaway king. He leads his Penn State defense in takeaways and interceptions. He's also forced a fumble. So if he's getting a lot more reps, he's getting a lot more playing time, I think he has one of the biggest days.
Aeneas, who do you like offensively and defensively for the Nittany Lions?
The first guy I'm going to go with is Juice Scruggs at that center position, because I know if we're going to have a makeshift offensive line in there, it's going to be really important that they have a leader to look to get all the checks in and make sure guys are doing their jobs appropriately. He's going to have a huge day. If we talk about a freshman going in potentially at left tackle, we talk about guys having to play spots they don't normally play in, it's going to be super important that he's able to lead that group. So that's my guy on offense. Defensively, I'm calling out Adisa Isaac out of Brooklyn, New York, because Adisa at his best, when he's healthy, when he's confident, he is the best pass rusher on this football team. I know who Chop Robinson is. I know he's a great ball player. Reminds me a lot of Arnold Ebiketie with the Atlanta Falcons now. We've seen flashes from him all year long. He's played consistent football. I want to see Adisa Isaac step up. I think this Indiana offensive line is going to have a hard time keeping up, and if they can get pressure on whoever the quarterback is, this game is over before it ever started.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, Indiana's offensive line is one of the worst in the Big Ten. I think that Penn State can treat this game like Minnesota in this game plan, where you can sell out for the run. Even though Indiana's bad at running the football, if Dexter Williams comes in, I'm not questioning him as a passer. I'm questioning his targets, because Cam Camper's out, and he was by far the leading wide receiver. So you don't get any help if you're coming off the bench and your number one guy's out. Look at Kyler Murray without D-Hop, and now look at that offense with DeAndre Hopkins back in. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of flow. There's going to be a lot of starts and stops, even though that they go fast. I think Penn State will ultimately play this game a little slower than you would think so, which leads me to believe that this is a big Nicholas Singleton game. I am expecting over 100 yards, maybe even closer to 200, because I think that Penn State, they're going to find a way to get him into space. Indiana's actually missing their best defender in Cam Jones. He was their best athlete. James Franklin called him out in the press conference. This is a Singleton type of day where, even though, you're missing 3/5 of your offensive line, 60% of your offensive line, but Singleton will be able to get going against a team that he's just faster than everybody. Like, that's the thing. If Cam Jones is out there, he's able to track him down, but he's faster than everybody else on this team, right? And that they're also going to go quick passing. You're not going to have time to allow plays to develop. Indiana will know that if your offensive line's a little banged up. So Sean Clifford's going to go quick. So I just think, with the type of game it is, I think Penn State's just going to run the ball effectively, and then defensively, they might have 1 or 2 touchdowns. If Dexter Williams is in there at quarterback, I can easily see him throwing a pick 6, maybe even 2, with the kind of guys that they have in the secondary.
Yeah, I think you're on the money. I want to also bring up the name Kevon Lee, who it sounds like has a good chance to potentially be back this week.
I hope so.
They could have a trifecta in that room that should be able to run that ball in that Indiana defense.
I like Kevon Lee. I like what he brings to the backfield in terms of a pass catcher and just the poise he brings as breaking tackles. I mean, we haven't seen Katron Allen become the man amongst boys until the last 2 weeks, and that's with the absence of Kevon Lee. So maybe with his return, you're start to see those 2 running backs start to be the helm of the backfield, at least for this Saturday, because you don't really need that big play potential that Nick Singleton brings if you're not able to get a running start because the offensive line isn't getting any push against the defense.
And I think they just will, by virtue of this is a trap game by definition, but they are just so. It's not the Michigan State teams that they lost to in 17 and 18. This is an Indiana team that just does not have the talent, and they are missing their best guys at the worst time at this point in the season. Let's get some score predictions before we go to a Sports Center update. Jamal, what is your final score for Penn State and Indiana tomorrow?
My final first score for Penn State, I think they're going to score the football. I think they're going to score the football a lot, but I have not seen this Penn State team score the football at 50 points a game. I haven't seen it done all season. I've only seen it done 3 times under the Franklin regime since 2017. So with that being said, I think we score 44. 44 is a lot, but I also think this defense plays great, and they only let up 17 points in garbage time.
44-17, Aeneas.
Yeah, I'm going to go 38-17. I like what you're saying, Jamal. I apologize. Great minds think alike. But I do think that this Indiana offense finds a way to drive down the field and score one time. Maybe get some tricky playoff that puts them in good scoring position. Maybe a turnover here or there. I think 17 points is about as much as you should expect them to be able to score against a defense like Penn State's. And I agree with you. I think Penn State's offense has to find ways to score. We've seen a more complete offense from Penn State. I know it's tough coming off of a loss against Ohio State. I thought the offense looked better than they had in certain aspects with the receivers getting going, tight ends getting involved in the running game, starting to find its feet. I like them to score a lot of points too.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the 38-17 as well. I think Indiana gets a garbage touchdown. I think they're going to start Bazelak because Dexter Williams, I don't think they're just going to throw him out there because that he was injured after fall camp. He's still somebody that's working their way back. I think it's just doing that to just be funny. Tom Allen and James Franklin not naming a starting quarterback. So 38-17, but with the tilt being it's 38-10. And when Dexter Williams does come into the game, I mean, how many, all the starters are going to be out for Penn State. How many backups are going to be ready for an option type of quarterback when there's no film on him? And I can see that touchdown coming in under 2 minutes. So Penn State and Indiana, we all like the game. We all like them to cover the spread and go over the total. Sorry, Steve, but it's the world of sports we live in today. We're going to talk some MLB World Series and NFL to finish up the show here at Sports Talk without Steve Jones. Steve is flying to Bloomington, Indiana for the game tomorrow. Time now for a Sports Center update on ESPN Radio.
This is your Sports Center update on State College's ESPN Radio 1037 and 1450. Sponsored by Nittany Beverage. With over 60 in-house brewers and suppliers, Nittany Beverage is the area's best choice for all of your beer, cider, and flavored malt needs.
I'm Zach Sako. Yesterday, Game 5 of the MLB World Series went in the books. Houston beats Philadelphia 3-2, and the Astros take a 3-2 lead in the series. Game 6 is tomorrow night, and we will join it in progress on ESPN Radio State College. Coverage beginning at 7 p.m. for the entirety of the World Series. First pitch is at 8:03, but we will join it in progress after the Penn State football game. The Philadelphia Eagles beat the Houston Texans. Fitting, Houston versus Philly. Eagles win 29-17, and the Eagles are 8-0, the only unbeaten team in the NFL, and this is also the first time in franchise history that they begin a season 8-0. Former Penn State running back Miles Sanders led the way with 93 rushing yards and a touchdown. And as I mentioned, Penn State football plays Indiana tomorrow. The Nittany Lions are currently 14-point favorites. You can listen to live complete coverage on ESPN Radio State College and 99.5 The Bus at 12:30 tomorrow with our local pregame show. Kickoff follows at 3:30 with Steve Jones, Jack Ham, and Brian Tripp, and then our local postgame show begins approximately at 8 p.m. Also, if you want more coverage of Penn State football and analysis and predictions for tomorrow's game, tune in for Keystone Kickoff at 3 p.m. Tune in for Pater, the Penn State football show with Matt McGloin and Tom Hannafin at 4 right here on ESPN Radio State College. That's your Sports Center update on ESPN Radio. Your sports bozo, the positive side of sports, and our takes on the MLB World Series and the NFL are next.
Joel Confer Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap is your one-stop shop automotive stop for the Center Region's best in quality pre-owned vehicles. Best because they're handpicked by Joel and Sonny while using their over 100 years of automotive experience in doing so. Best because they're serviced, reconditioned, and priced to sell. Best because they put their reputation on the line to assure you of a carefree driving experience. Best because Joel Confer Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap will give you top dollar for your trade-in. And best because they care enough to make sure you're getting the vehicle that's right for you. Come see the Joel Confer Quality Pre-Owned difference for yourself. Joel Confer Quality Pre-Owned, 475 East College Avenue in Pleasant Gap. Call 814-954-5237. That's 814-954-5237. Or visit them 24/7 online at joelconferqualitypreowned.com.
This is the month when Americans traditionally pause to give thanks for our many blessings. It's only fitting that we also come together to thank our extraordinary veterans and military families for their service to our country. November is Veterans and Military Families Month, a time to honor our troops and their loved ones for their collective service and sacrifice.
Brought to you by McCann Wealth Strategies, offering a holistic financial planning process to cover more than just your money. Find out how at McCannWealthStrategies.com.
What makes a great career? Work-life balance? Great benefits? A job where you can make a difference? That's Penn State Extension, and we're hiring. Flexible schedules, generous time off, remote work opportunities, great medical coverage, retirement, and a Penn State tuition discount. A job where you can do good for the environment, for agriculture, for families. Go to extension.psu.edu/careers and check out positions that match your talents and interests. That's extension.psu.edu/careers.
Come visit the all-new Chronix Jewelers in State College. Chronix Jewelers is celebrating their grand reopening sale. Take a break from inflation prices and save up to 60% now on diamond engagement rings, diamond pendants, and diamond stud earrings. Save big on wedding bands and color stone jewelry. Visit the all-new Chronix Jewelers on Atherton Street, State College. See the most stunning store in town and save money. Chronix carries by far the largest inventory in the area. Looking for engagement rings or wedding bands? Don't miss this one-time opportunity to save our diamond stud earrings in your future. Meet the fine people at Chronix. Lay away and save. Chronix grand reopening, the area's largest selection. See why the competition hates it. Gorgeous store and drastic price reductions. Chronix Jewelers, North Atherton Street, State College. And remember, Chronix offers super easy financing for those who qualify. Some exclusions may apply.
Tristan Crick for BetQL. Is the NBA season too young to pick out trends? I don't think so. The trend that sticks out so far this year is that the LA Clippers are going to be an under monster all season. They are 7-1 to the under so far this year, and a lot of games haven't even been close. They play really stifling defense, and they have trouble scoring, plus Kawhi has missed a ton of games. That's a recipe for a lot of low-scoring matches. Until Kawhi is healthy, it's Clippers unders all day, all night. I'm Tristan Crick, helping you, people.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you 24/7, with supplies and solutions for every industry, and access to product specialists ready to help. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Well, you probably wouldn't buy a pre-owned mattress, straw, or toothbrush.
Ew.
Pre-owned vehicles are a different story. There's one dealer in Happy Valley that has a great selection of pre-owned vehicles and even Kia certified pre-owned vehicles. It's Lion Country Kia. Ride with the confidence of a certified pre-owned Kia from Lion Country Kia. Get a vehicle 5 years or newer with mileage less than 60,000 miles. Each certified pre-owned vehicle features a thorough 164-point quality assurance inspection and reinstates Kia's original manufacturer's warranty. There's even a free 90-day XM Sirius subscription. Lion Country Kia has a large selection of certified pre-owned vehicles and a great selection of other brands to choose from too. No guesswork, just the confidence of a Kia certified pre-owned vehicle. Only at Lion Country Kia, 1334 Drive-Over Street, off Shiloh Road, behind Sam's Club, State College.
We now return to Sports Talk with Steve Jones on ESPN Radio 1037 and 1450. Knuckleballs and knuckleheads. Sports has them all. Time to nominate the sports bozo of the day. Sponsored by Beer Belly's Beverage, where beer lives. Featuring more than 500 labels every day. They're in the Hamilton Square Shopping Center and online at beerliveshere.com.
All right, we have two nominees for this one, and I was reminded of this because I saw this video go viral on Twitter. But we'll start with Kyrie Irving. I think this one's a little easy here, but now you're suspended 5 games without pay, and literally all you had to do, even if you don't mean it, you just had to say, "I'm sorry," and you could have saved yourself millions of dollars here.
Literal millions of dollars.
Some people just don't want it. You know what I mean? You get too rich.
He's got all the money in the world. He's finessed how much out of the Nets now? 35 million when he came back on his player option?
You know, one thing
because he wanted to test the open market.
I've noticed, though, when people get money, they think they have power. And you have power when you have money and you're writing the checks. But once your check starts getting written off, you're just another worker, man. I don't care how much money you have.
I mean, Kyrie Irving could probably buy and sell me, so...
I guess the thing to me is, like, if it's not about the money, if it's not about basketball, then why are we still playing? What are we doing still? If you're so frustrated with everything, move on. Do what you want to do, really. You have all the money in the world. Go ahead and live your life.
Well, it's not the basketball that's the problem. He loves the game of basketball. He hates the media. I don't know where this whole anti-media thing came from, Kyrie. Who rubbed him the wrong way?
Stop talking to the media. Pull a Marshawn Lynch. And I'm just here so I won't get fined. You do not have to talk to him, but I think he wants to. So that's also can be a sports bozo in that. You like the pain. Also in our sports bozo, this was so there was somebody that manages the baseball Reddit account, and Reddit's a forum site where exchange of ideas, whatever have you. I'm not really on there, but baseball has one, and that's where all the baseball fans come together. And he said that he posted a post saying, "Hey, I'm next to Rob Manfred. I will scream the top comment at him, whatever that is." And so the top comment was, I want to find it here. "You will get the youth by ending blackouts, dumbass." And he goes, "Hey, Rob," and he said just that. And so that was the top comment, and that's true. If you end, and Rob Manfred just kind of he just put his head down. He didn't know how to respond. But
what are you supposed to say?
He got his attention. He was sitting right next to him, so I thought that was funny. Positive side of sports. This one is a little tough, and it's somewhat personal to me, probably not as personal to some of the other people in the local area, but this news has been shared publicly. Mifflin County former high school football head coach Scott Seckler passed away due to cancer, and that's just the sad fact of life that, at some point in time, things come to an end, great things come to an end. But the positive side is how hard Scott Seckler fought the way, and for people that are listening that do know this individual, how much he put his blood, sweat, and tears into that Mifflin County football program that is actually getting ready to play a playoff game tonight against Altoona, and he had to step down because he was battling cancer. But to go as long as he did, to step into a program, I'm not sure how either of you familiar are with the Mifflin County program, but they fired their head coach in the middle of the season back in 2017. And Scott Seckler stepped in, led them to 3 wins at the end of the season, their only wins in that season. Then took over the program full time, led them to their first district title game in I think 7 or 8 years at that point in time. Then had some rebuilding years where they weren't seeing as much success. And they were playing teams like State College, Bishop McDevitt, for crying out loud. So it is pretty tough. But the fight and the hard work and the love that he had for those kids on the football team is the positive side of sports. Rest in peace, Scott Seckler. You will definitely be missed. And I know that Mifflin County will be playing their hearts out for you tonight. Huskies and Altoona playing in a district semifinal game to meet State College in the championship. Something to brighten the mood back up. I didn't mean to get so teary-eyed here, but the World Series is coming to a close. We could see a Game 7. Up until this point, neither team had lost back-to-back games in the playoffs. Neither team had gone on a 2-game losing streak, and now Philly has done just that. They have lost 2 in a row. The game went to Houston 3-2. Now the series is 3-2. Jamal, you were the Philadelphia guy. Do the Phillies have a chance in Game 6?
The fight-ins are down, and I'll be honest with you, the mood in Philly was up, and we're kind of sad because they stole one. Like if you rewatch that game, that's the definition of stealing a game. They were on the road, and Philadelphia, the Phillies, they've made too many mental errors. They made too many mistakes that the Houston Astros, they just didn't make. I think they played some of the best defense they've ever played in their entire lives yesterday. I definitely do. Now, my question is, do they need to play that same brand of defense at home? I don't think so. And that's where I'm a little confused or question how well or how good this Phillies team is going to play on Saturday because they don't have the fans behind them. They were undefeated at home, and now that's squashed. They just lost. They haven't lost 2 games in a row, and they just did that. And I just hope this Phillies team, well, not only do they have the morale, but they have the gusto to go into Houston and beat them the same way they played in Game 1. When they're the underdogs and they're the hungry dogs. And I hope they're not down being a sour puppy right now. Because in Philly, the fans, we don't have the same morale we did up 1-0. We don't have the same morale we did 2-2 at home. Especially the way they stole that game on the road. It was disgusting to watch. And, we're just praying for a bounce back.
Jamal, you got to remember who you're talking about here right now. These guys. Now let me preface this by saying, okay, I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan. Okay, our season ended a long time ago. All right, it ended before it started. These guys weren't even supposed to make the playoffs at a certain point. They were fighting to get in. They were fighting to get into the playoffs. I remember it. Now they're here in the World Series. They've shown you resilience time and time again. Yesterday they lost the game. You're right. Houston came in and stole the game from them. But at the end of the day, they made that play on the wall. Houston did. They had to play at first base. They were playing out of their minds and got a win. Bryce Harper and the gang have been hitting the ball. I think they find a way to go get the job done in Houston. They got the city behind them. They are not at home, but they know that the city of Philadelphia is behind them. They're greasing poles as we speak. It's time for Philadelphia to figure it out.
So about greasing poles, we may not be greasing any poles for a few days here in Philly, but again, Bryce Harper, he's been struggling. Bryce Harper didn't get an at-bat hit for 18 times at-bat, and with that being said, he got one yesterday, and it didn't even pan out to be anything. He got to second base, and he got out. So what you're trying to see us finishing these innings, and having players come home runs. This Philly team is struggling at-bat. Defensively, they're playing great.
But look at yesterday. Look at how Houston performed defensively at the end of the game when the Phillies had them back on the ropes and were about to go find a way to tie that ball game up. They started making out-of-their-mind plays to go win that game. Can Houston keep that up long-term? Is that really sustainable?
I do. The only reason I think it's sustainable is because now they're at home. Now they're at home. They're not on the road. They're not going against that hectic, chaotic Philly fan base. They're at home. They're comfortable, and they're the big dogs there. And they play the best defense of their lives, or at least of the entire season, on the road in the biggest game. Game 5 World Series. It's bigger than that. So I think this Houston team has what it takes to pull it out. But the fan in me says no.
Yeah, you're selling your team.
Fighting. The fighting are still fighting. I think they have it. I mean, you need better performances from Bryce Harper. You need him to get more hits.
I mean, he's done everything to this point that he can do. You know, it's still collectively a team sport.
Raul Meadow, you need him to play a lot better. And again, it's just hitting the ball. Defensively, this team, they've played the best they potentially could play, but a no-hitter game 4. Game 5, you have many people on base where you should at least bring one guy home in 3 of those innings. Three of those innings, one guy should come home, and he doesn't. And then you have the guy coming in home for the third run. For Houston Astros, and really all it was a missed catch out of first base. It's just mistakes, it's mental errors, and I think at home was really the problem for this Phillies team. Game 5, I think the fans being on their side, it was a lot of pressure.
The no hitter for me is that you're losing 3-2, okay, and Houston just making a few more better defensive plays. Like, that's all right. You know, that's just a good team. You're playing the best team out of the AL, but getting no hit at home, I think that's inexcusable.
Fresh off of hitting 5 home runs.
And I think that's the pressure. I think that's the pressure they felt Game 5 that they definitely won't feel on the road in Houston. They have nothing to lose. They have no one that's going to boo them, that's supposed to be on their side. They have no one turning their back on them. I mean, the Philly fans were ruthless. They got booed in that Game 4.
Jamal, let me ask you, is it over? You're a Phillies fan.
Yeah, I know, that's the vibe I'm getting.
Is it over? Say what you want to say.
I think I'm sitting across from you. I will answer for you. I think it is, because Framber Valdez is coming in, and Valdez is the only lefty on this team for the Astros. And what are the best bats in this Phillies lineup? Left-handed hitting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if Valdez is able to give you 6, maybe 7 innings,
it gets tough fast.
I mean, he went out and threw 6 1/3, 1 run, and 9 strikeouts in that game 2, and they won 5-2. I'm just saying, I hope you have your righty hitters step up in that game. I'm not saying that Bryson and Kyle Schwarber can't get hits, but look at the stats. I mean, the numbers truly don't lie in baseball, and that's the analytics sport. I mean, Schwarber's not good against lefties. Bryce Harper isn't as good.
Listen, man, you guys never clearly watched Rocky. You haven't heard the Rocky theme music playing through the TV. I'm not hearing the energy levels, okay? No, their backs are against the ropes. We all know that here listening. That's not what the viewers and the listeners here of this lovely show are here to hear. They want to see the Phillies go down to Houston and find a way to make it happen. Backs against the ropes. You've got the talent to do it. Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper got to get hot. They've done it before. They've done it, and they'll do it again. They could do it again here in Game 6.
They can do it again there in Game 6. I definitely think they can win the game on the road, but it's all about momentum. It's all about morale. And they played a really good game yesterday.
No doubt, they did.
They did not play bad at all. Like I said, they should at least come away with 1 run on 3 of those innings, and they got 0. They got 0 kaput. So with that being said, you're going away. You don't have anyone to boo you. The fans won't boo you. You have no one against you. Literally, the hungry dogs they run faster. And I think this Phillies team, if they can keep that morale, they can keep the attitude of the city, they can go in there and definitely make some noise early on and hopefully win the game at the end. But that Houston's defense is tough, man. That Houston's defense, it's one of the best defenses I've ever seen.
And that's so situational. This is also the same team we're talking about made 2 errors. If you're so great defensively, why are you making errors period, in the World Series if you're one of the best teams? So did they make some flashy plays? Absolutely. But I think this is going to boil down to pitching because it's Framber Valdez against Zach Wheeler. You have the 2 best arms, not necessarily. Verlander, is he better? But in terms of matchup, I think Valdez is going to be tougher for Philly against and Zach Wheeler. You might get 0-0 all the way till the 8th or the 9th inning, if I'm being honest. I think and Wheeler will go the distance if he needs to because they need to win this game. Both it's a must win, but at least she has some wiggle room for Houston. How about we shift gears to the NFL real quick? So Aeneas, you like Philadelphia to win Game 6? Do you like them to win a Game 7 potentially?
I think if they find a way out of Game 6, then they have to find a way to win Game 7. I think Game 6, I think everything's on the line right here. I mean, obviously everything's on the line right here, but if they get out of Game 6, I love their odds in 7.
You win Game 6, you win Game 7. It's the golden formula.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, you've seen it before. Teams go on 2-game winning streaks all the time. It's all about momentum. It's all about confidence. And especially there at bat, you need everyone clear of head. And I think in a Game 7, they'll be clear of head knowing that they got to win this one.
I will take Houston in Game 6. Everyone the phone lines are closed. That's we'll close them at this point. I don't need to hear from anybody for Philly fans. All right, the NFL. This is kind of general because there's really no team we can focus on out of 32. The Steelers suck. The Eagles are 8-0. Fly Eagles fly. I actually like them. I don't care that people have said they haven't played a tough schedule. They've shown me that they are a good team. That when they do face tougher competition, that I think they'll be just fine. But I don't think we can start here. I don't think the Eagles are going undefeated.
Oh, Zach, that was my question. Zach, I was about to sit in your chair.
I looked right at you when I said it.
I was going to ask that. Do you think the Eagles finish the season undefeated? Because my FanDuel dollars are all on it. My FanDuel dollars are all on this Eagles team finishing this season potentially undefeated, or maybe with one loss. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is able to sneak away one loss on a comeback season because he's going to need to come back from the way they've started. But you look at their schedule, the way it's shaped up, they have Washington, they have the Colts, they have the Titans, they have the division rivals Giants and the Cowboys. And I'm not sure how good you think the Giants and Cowboys actually are. The records say they're pretty good. Their records say they're pretty good, but when you look at them on tape compared to this Eagles team who looks sound in every area of the football team, I mean, talk about defensively, their secondary is amazing. You talk about defensively, the defensive line's amazing. Offensively, O-line's the best in the league. Receiving group, top 5 in the league. Quarterback, he's the MVP right now. And the running back group, well, you can question that, but Boobie Sanders has been playing pretty good. So, undefeated, Zach? Where do you think this team's going to lose if you look at their schedule? Which team gives them a challenge?
Giants or the Cowboys?
The Giants, the Cowboys. I don't think you go undefeated in this era.
I could see the Cowboys doing it. I mean, but this is the conversation we're having. If you have one loss in the number 1 seed, who cares if you go undefeated? If they go 16-1, I still think that's a pretty damn good season.
I like how you're sitting there saying 16-1, not 15-2, not 14-3. You understand that this Eagles team is only going to continue to win, and I think that's a problem for them. I think any team that has not faced controversy, they don't do good when controversy strikes. You look at that 2009 Patriots team that was undefeated, 2008 Patriots team that was undefeated. Yep. They didn't face controversy until the Super Bowl. And then it was time to pull out fourth quarter victory. It was time to win a game close and competitively, and they couldn't do it. They didn't feel the hurt of losing. They didn't feel the anguish of being the loser at the end of a Sunday. And I feel like this Eagles team, they need that. We need a loss for this team to propel us to success.
They could lose to the Titans as well.
They could.
Whether it's Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill. I mean, they're well coached, and that's the same type of football. I haven't seen somebody give it back to the Eagles. How do you respond to a team that does the exact same thing you do?
What was the Pittsburgh Steelers record going into Week 12 of the season last year? I think they were sitting at 11-0. And what have they done since?
In the COVID season, the 2020, they were 11. Yeah, they were 11-0.
It's just so tough to go undefeated playing NFL football. We talk about the Titans, who are good enough to compete and go win a game. We talk about the Giants, who are playing high level football. We talk about the Dallas Cowboys, whose pass rush really may be second to none in the NFL. It's just too tough to go win these games consecutively. And then, like you said, to your point, to do that and then carry it right over to the playoffs, you finish the regular season undefeated. Everybody's going to expect you to go out there and make a legitimate run of the Super Bowl. I just don't see it's realistic. I think Jalen Hurts is playing good football. I do think that they may be the best overall team in the NFL because they're playing complementary right now. But undefeated, man, that is just tough to do in today's day and age.
In the night that is the Philadelphia Eagles, they have shown no kink in their armor. They have showed no kink in their armor, and the only way a team can have any success of beating them, if you watch yesterday's game tape, well, it was running the ball. You saw what Dameon Pierce did to the Eagles team, and he was running through a bunch of the secondary because the Eagles team, they play secondary heavy a lot of the time on the defense. So with that being said, run the ball. And I'm looking at their schedule, and the only team that threatens them to run the ball well is that New York Giants team with Saquon Barkley, who's averaging right now 25 touches per game.
That's the only threat? Like they don't have to go play the Tennessee Titans, Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I was going to say you need to throw in Derrick Henry there.
He's not in the mix?
Say that word again. You need to throw in Derrick Henry. Well, that team can't throw, Zach. So we're going to do it. We're going to send the house. We're going to send the blitz. I mean, the only team, like I said, that fears or puts any fear into this Eagles team is that New York Giants team because they do run the ball. And then Daniel Jones, he'll also get out there. He'll run himself. He'll throw a play-action pass here and there. And if that defense is able to continue to play the way they're playing, holding teams to close to averaging under 20 points per game, this Giants team could be a problem, but this is, again, could be, and I don't see it right now. The way this Eagles team is so sound in every area of the team. Defense, offense. You show me the kink in the armor and you talk about it, you tell me what's the problem. I haven't heard one because there isn't one.
How confident? This is my final question because
we're at the 2-minute warning here, so let's get it all out.
I've got nothing against the Eagles. I have nothing against the Eagles at all. How confident are you that over a 17-game stretch, the Eagles are not dropping one game? With all the very many aspects they can change a football game, turnovers, penalties, so many things outside of the Eagles' control, injuries. How confident are you that they go undefeated?
I say 20% right now, only because they haven't really been in any close games throughout the entire season, unless you look at that Cardinals game. That was a close game because they were a really good team. You look at the Jaguars game, that was a close game because Doug Pearson was the former coach of the Eagles. And then you look at the rest of the schedule, outside of week 1 against the Detroit Lions, they haven't been in any close games. I don't think they'll be in any close games for the remainder of the season.
Time will tell, my friend. I'm excited to watch now. Now I have vested interest in seeing if the Eagles go undefeated.
Vested interest that every Philly fan has as well.
And then when we try to do this in 2 weeks, because Steve will be on a plane going to Piscataway, New Jersey for the Rutgers game, we can see if you're right on the money or if we have to play this clip back.
No doubt. We're saying all of it's getting recorded, no doubt.
2 weeks from now, 10-0.
Yeah, who do they? Let's see. Commanders and Colts, absolutely. Packers, I think they beat them as well. But
I can't wait to be sitting here with you 2 weeks from now.
That's Sports Talk with Steve Jones. Steve is going to be calling tomorrow's Penn State-Indiana game here on ESPN Radio State College and 99.5 The Bus.
Sports Talk with Steve Jones is a production of State College's ESPN Radio 1450, WQWK State College.